All right, all right. Well, there we go, and I'm right here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Omari, Salisbury, Converge Media. I want to welcome you here to our election night coverage. We got a whole lot of people on tap tonight. A whole lot of good stuff to get into. Hopefully, no bad stuff as we watch the election results come into everything. As we wait for Mr. Cerna to join us, Enrique Cerna, to pop on to the green room back there. We got Bobby Stills up on Capitol Hill. So we'll go to Bobby first to see what's going on out there. Everybody's worried about protests and everything else. Bobby.
Good evening, viewers. Good evening, Omari. Welcome to election nights. We're here on Capitol Hill in front of these precincts. The air is electric, just waiting for the results. I got some results. John Mitchell's up here. He's got the election results actually playing his window off some projectors. So,
All right. Well, I see you have the nice mix there of bulletproof vest and button-up shirt.
We keep it classy here, bow ties and bulletproof vests, B&B.
Is anything active up there in Capitol Hill?
So two things. Earlier, I saw two trucks come by with Trump flags on them, very big trucks, loud trucks. And then I was walking through the park. I saw some protesters gathering in Cal Anderson Park by the fountain. So it's pretty, there's a couple other journalists that are gathering over here. There's some journalists that we know of that are with everyday marchers in South Lake Union. Right now, I don't really see anybody out here, but it's still early. So,
All right. Well, look, be safe out there, Bobby. We'll check back in with you later on in the hour, okay?
All right, guys.
Peace. All right, let me bring in one of my partners in crime right here, Marcus Harrison Green. Marcus, the publisher of the South Seattle Emerald. How are you this evening, brother?
I'm doing just great. How are you doing today, O?
Man, it's been a long day. This is like my third show today.
Dang, I'm surprised, bro. It hadn't been 4 or 5. So yeah, it's good to see you though, man.
Yeah, no, we had really pushed the message to get people out to vote. I think King County performed well as far as people, getting those ballots in. But
absolutely, King County also just a record number of votes in terms of early voting in Washington State as well. So we've just been having a wonderful good turnout, a wonderful good showcase of folks, practicing their civic duty, which is to vote.
All right. Let me bring in a few more people here who'll be joining us throughout the evening. Here is Mike Davis, South Seattle Emerald.
Hey,
brother Mike, a man after my own heart, man. How you work, man, Mike? We work together, bro. And the only time I ever see you is on Converge, man. I mean, what's up with that? We got to fix that. I got to say, but anyway.
Hey, it's nice to be here with you, though, man. I think it's our first time on together, so that's nice.
Absolutely. I mean, I just want to say, man, all the election coverage that I've seen so far, I have not seen just a monopoly of black faces, if you will. So this is great to see. This is going to be one of the most colorful, figuratively and literally, election night shows that it will be on air tonight. So
definitely, we've got to bring in Mike's partner in crime, Julia Jessie. What's up, Julia?
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going good. How's everything with you?
Hey, I'm amped up right now. My council member 1, Team Trayon White, my elected official 1. So I'm on cloud 9. We got 4 more years over here. We're going to see what happens in this presidential race.
Right.
And let everybody know, you're out in Washington, D.C., right?
Yes. So I'm in Washington, D.C. I work for a city council member, Councilmember Trayon White. He is one of 13 members that needed to run in this election. So he got 79% of the votes right now. It's still unofficial, but that's over 7,000 votes. It had 2 other people on the ballot running against him. So he crushed them. So I'm really, really excited about that. The energy here in DC is just crazy. So I'm excited. It feels like game day.
Yeah, I ask you, do they got are there huge marches out there? What's the scene out there right now?
I mean, right now, I don't know. I'm in the house, but earlier today, it was a lot of like caravans and people like out, kind of riding in the back of pickup trucks, playing music. We have Black Lives Matter, some of those guys coming out. So, the energy is high and people at the polls are really, really, really interested and aggressive and encouraging. So it's a lot of good spirits. So people are waiting with bated breath to see what happens today.
So it's lit over there in Chocolate City.
That's how it is, baby.
Okay.
Got you. Oh, all right. Well, look, we're gonna let you marinate for a minute, Julia, and we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back to you a little later in the hour. Okay.
All right. I'll see y'all soon.
Wow, feeling it out there, huh?
Man.
She already won tonight.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I got my L. So I mean, you got my W.
She got my W. Yeah,
we'll see what else is popping up. So, waiting in the wings, we have the wordy and nerdy, as he likes to say it. But this is my main man, you know what I'm saying, my go-to guy for the breakdown on all the legislative stuff, the documents, and everything else. And he's added some diversity to our
it's not very.
You're more than the token white guy to me, but yeah, I just want
to say that means a lot to you, Marcus. I appreciate that. But yeah, I'm bringing the nerd tonight. So
yeah, you got the diversity in here, man. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad I could represent.
All right, so Kevin, we've got you in here for a specific reason. We're going to go over some of these hot topics, particularly pertaining to Seattle and to King County. So I'm gonna throw these out to you, and maybe you can give our viewers a breakdown as to what it's all about, and then we'll go and we'll discuss from there. First one I want to throw over to you, Kevin, is, let's see here, Charter Amendment number 2, affordable housing.
Yeah, so King County's got a whole bunch of different amendments to the city charter that they're doing. City charter amendments, unlike just sort of like passing a law, you have to have the county council approve it, and then you have to have the voters approve it too. And so, a lot of the things are things, that end up in the city charter. They just wouldn't want the county council to be able to, if they just get in the wrong mood, change some things. So, this one in particular is around affordable housing. So right now, you may remember in the last couple of years, the state changed this law to make it easier to for a city or county or the state to be able to give or sell it, under market value, a piece of property to be used for affordable housing, right? Because a lot of affordable housing projects are super price sensitive, and just saving a bunch of money on the land, the land tends to be in many cases their largest cost for a lot of these projects. So saving them that huge amount of money just really makes the projects go a lot farther and a lot faster. So this is for King County, sort of going along the same lines. They've got a law in the books for in the city charter that says that any county department, like the water department, has to use all the resources in the department just for things that are related to that department, right? So any land that the water department has can only be used for water department kinds of things, right? So they couldn't actually sort of give it away or sell it under market value for use for an affordable housing project. So this charter amendment actually changes that, so they'd be able to do that. And any county department would be able to do that.
So Kevin, oh, my bad, Omari. So Kevin, we know that we are dealing currently with a housing affordability crisis here in King County in Seattle. How would should this pass, how would this actually impact that? Would it help out with our affordability crisis in any significant way?
Yeah, so this is something we're seeing the city of Seattle start doing already, right? Because SDOT and Seattle City Light and Seattle Public Utilities have a bunch of surplus property, right? This lets the city, and in this case the county, basically say, okay, we want this housing project right here. We're basically going to donate this land to a nonprofit and let it go build an affordable housing project. It has to be for affordable housing, but it will just save those projects a lot of money and get them going a lot faster by doing this. So a huge benefit. There's already the city of Seattle sort of did this about a year ago, and it's already sort of reaping a bunch of benefits where it's being able to, once again, either give away, donate, or, sell below market value a piece of property.
Well, that was my question. The city of Seattle has already done that. So what this does is open that up to the rest of the county?
To the county government. So the other cities in King County would have to go do the same thing, right? Change whatever law they have on the books in this. So the state went first, then the city of Seattle went super fast, and now King County is catching up with it. But they've got a ton of county-owned property, so that'd be just a really, really great thing for them to do.
Got it.
So, and it doesn't have any opposition. So,
I was asking, like,
it's very likely to pass.
Right. I was like, yeah, who's voting against this?
It's interesting looking through, like, the ballot thing that we got, and see which ones have opposition statements and which ones don't. This one, like nobody even bothered to say, no, we hate that. Everybody loves this. It's a great thing to do.
Now, Kevin, reading through that, there was language that said nonprofit developers. So does this mean that it has to be a nonprofit developer? And are there things in place that would save us from any predatory type moves that could happen in these instances?
And it also, has to be approved by the county government, right? So when the city of Seattle does this, every single one of these sort of donations, the city council reviews and has to vote to approve, right? So there are some checks and balances there to make sure that the government just doesn't go crazy. And to the point, it's got to be a nonprofit. So this isn't just going to be a giveaway to corporate developers, right? This is something that's really got to be about affordable housing projects. And I believe, certainly when the city does this, they put restrictions into the contract for this that specify that, that it has to provide housing to meet people whose income is in specific income ranges around this.
Right. So next up here, let's see here. Charter Amendment 4, Law Enforcement Oversight, Subpoenas.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these charter amendments. I think there's 7 on the ballot, this time from King County altogether. And I think like 3 or 4 of them have to do with law enforcement oversight and police reform. And, this is one that has to do with the Office of Law Enforcement Oversight, which is sort of their equivalent of the OPA, right? This is it's civilian run office that investigates complaints about county law enforcement officers and their use of force. And it reviews any internal investigations within the sheriff's office. So this is really about sort of oversight of the sheriff's office there. And what this does, sorry, somebody sent up there?
I think that's just some feedback.
Okay, all right. So right now, the county council has passed a law that says that this Office of Law Enforcement Oversight has the right to issue subpoenas. So they can go collect, get subpoena witnesses, documents, other evidence related to its investigations and reviews. But this is a case where they're saying, we'd really like to make that in the city charter so that, a different county council that maybe, is a little more right-leaning doesn't overturn that, doesn't take that away, right? Or if there's, if there's a particularly political issue that comes up, right, that the county council couldn't just instantly pull back, the subpoena authority from these folks. So it just makes it more permanent. It'll put it in place and keep it in place, right? And again, this is one that has no opposition to it.
Got it.
No opposition. Okay, so I'm gonna do something interesting here. And this is the best thing. This is TV on the fly. I was filling in, and I mean, people might not even notice, but I was filling in for Mr. Cerna. Hey, whoa, hey, what's up?
Wow, we have Mr. Cerna. All right.
I was filling in. How are you, Enrique? Oh, and now he can't hear us. You see? Can you hear us, Enrique? Yeah, we're talking to you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh man, we go.
Well, you gonna keep filling in, and we gonna get Carter.
I guess so. We gonna keep it going over here.
So Kevin, go into an amendment that does have some opposition.
Wait, can I before we move on?
Hey, go ahead, Mike.
So, because I read through this, and sometimes that legal language can be a lot to really parse through. And I know you're the expert. So, I see that they have the subpoena power, and they can subpoena officers. They can put forth subpoenas for documents from the sheriff's office. But does this amendment give them any power behind those? Like, is it a legal obligation for an officer that gets subpoenaed to actually have to show up now?
Yeah, subpoenas are a legal obligation. They have to show up, right? They can, if they think it's overbroad, like particularly subpoena for evidence or documents or things like that, you know, if they think it's overbroad, they can go in court and fight it. But you know, they can't just decline. They don't have authority to do that.
Got it.
Right. I wanted to. I don't know. I was just following the list here. The next one up that we had was Charter Amendment number 1, which was inquests.
Yeah. This is a good and interesting one. So, what this one actually does two things. The first thing it does is wait, do I have that right? Let's see. So it broadens the circumstances in which an inquest is required. And they're trying to sort of get it to the point where, you know, basically all deaths involving law enforcement, you know, will be required to do this. So, you know, under the current law, it says that you know, an inquest is required for any death involving a member of a law enforcement agency of the county that occurred in the performance of the law enforcement member's duties, right? And so, you know, you'll see kind of what the difference is when I tell you what they're trying to change to. They're trying to change it to saying when an action, decision, or the possible failure to offer appropriate care by a member of law enforcement agency may have contributed to a person's death. So it's not just like, did the law enforcement officer do a thing that caused a death, but also did the law enforcement officer, should they have done something that they didn't do, or didn't do something that they should have done?
So essentially, Kevin is saying their inaction potentially leads to
potentially their inaction. Look at the word guy there, right? Good words there.
I mean, I write for a living.
Yeah. So they're trying to broaden out so there's no loopholes in there. You know, the other thing this does is, and this is really important, really good, it requires the county to assign an attorney to represent the family of the deceased person in the inquest proceedings, right? And this is something that it has been kind of a big issue in a couple of the high-profile inquests that have happened recently by the county. The county is responsible for all inquests that happen within the county. So even if a Seattle Police Department officer, you know, is involved in a death, the county organizes the inquest that happens of that. And so this would just be a really great, fantastic thing to actually get on the books, that the government is required to actually provide an attorney to the family so that they're well represented and they understand the proceedings and they understand how they can participate in them.
Yeah, and is that also an equity issue? I'm wondering, Kevin, in terms of them actually providing a lawyer for the family, in the sense that, because I know that can be a cost barrier to a lot of folks. Yeah,
and there are certainly some, you know, private firms out there that will do that sort of thing pro bono, but, you know, they could be booked up, right? And they may not be available to do this. So you're absolutely right, Marcus. It is an important equity issue here to make sure that every family has that available to them, because the county is and so a family can decline, right? They can go get their own attorney. They can decide for some reason they don't want to have an attorney, but the county is required to offer it to them.
Got it.
Right.
Position here?
What was that?
Is there opposition to this amendment?
No, there's no opposition to this one. Hopefully it'll just soar right on through.
Well,
this inquest has been a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know, and it's going to continue. I mean, they've still got a lot of issues to work out with the rules and the processes for inquests. So they're far from done for it. But this is a good move. This is a good start.
All right. Well, Omari, I keep hearing that Enrique is now potentially back with us. Like it seemed like you got to do all the ones that didn't have any opposition. You bring it in here for the conflicts, right? For the amendments that do have some opposition. Is that the case?
Nah, Enrique ain't here, man.
Oh, yeah.
Did we lose him again?
Enrique was.
It's like, where's Enrique? Is also. I guess that's a game on election night.
Where's Enrique? Yeah.
Anyway.
We got a big one right here next though, and this is number 5, and this is Appoint Sheriff. Tell us about this one here.
Yeah, so you know, this is kind of something that's flipped back and forth. In the original King County Charter back in 1969, the sheriff was an appointed position, and then in 1996. Through a charter amendment, like is like this one. The voters of King County change it to be elected position. And so this would switch it back to being appointed. It also, if that happens, right now the sheriff has responsibility for collective bargaining with the union that represents the officers in the sheriff's department. That would move over to be the responsibility of the county executive to do that collective bargaining with them. There is, both strong support and strong opposition of this. And, it's funny in some ways, a part of what they're both saying is the same thing, which is don't politicize the sheriff's office, right? And so there's, competing arguments about what politicizes it. Does it politicize it to have it be an elected position? Well, yeah, in a way it does. Does it politicize it to have the county council appointing this person, right? And setting the rules for health. And this and the next one we're going to talk about, Amendment 6, are very, very closely related. And there's some people arguing that sort of doing a lot of the opposition says you put these two together, and we'll talk about the second half of this in a couple of minutes, is really kind of a strong move to put the sheriff's office at the mercy of politicians. But then the flip side, the support side for this, is saying that if we want reform in the sheriff's office, much as looking at the whole set of issues that we're looking at with Seattle Police Department, then this will allow for greater police accountability and faster reform, rather than having to go through the process of electing a new sheriff and hopefully electing one who is running on a platform of doing major reforms to this. This allows the county council and the county executive to have a much stronger hand in driving reform in the sheriff's office.
Well, Kevin, and I'm gonna be honest, I kind of struggled with this one in the sense that I know it's all its supporters are saying that this will provide more accountability to the sheriff's office and so forth. But right, I mean, we have in the city of Seattle, we have a position with the head of SPD, the SPD chief, who is appointed and not elected, versus the King County sheriff, who is elected. And I keep wondering, I mean, is there any real difference when it comes to accountability, right? I mean, is it that we're essentially just trying to shift who is, how we, vet the captain on the Titanic when the whole thing needs to kind of be steered around? I mean, what will this actually provide some accountability, with the sheriff's office should it pass?
I think that's a really good question, and it like I said, around the politicization, there's you can't get away from the politicization of this, right? Whether you're electing a sheriff or whether you've got the county council, all elected officials, and the county executive, elected official picking somebody, right? It's going to be political either way.
Well, and that's what my worry was, is like, what if we get a King County council that tends to lean right, law and order, like 7 out of 9 of them, let's say, end up being, staunchly law and order type folks, and then they are in charge of appointing this person, right? We're probably not going to get a progressive sheriff, I would assume.
But I've had progressive sheriffs run for that position, because when you go back and look at the history of who's running, a lot of them run unopposed anyway. So it's not like we're choosing between this person and that person. Is usually just a person that's running that gets selected. So it's
right, but that person is selected by the people in a democratic way versus 9 folks who who are accountable to what?
When you look at the rotation of the years in which we're even voting for this, most people don't even end up voting. That's one of those things that rarely gets any votes, and it's super far down the ballot. So
but Mike, I dig it. I understand it. But all I'm saying is, do we need better candidates, or do we need to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak, and throw out the whole process? You know what I'm saying? Do we just need to change that we have better candidates who are running, and we have people who actually vote for these candidates?
I agree with throwing out the whole process, but for the process as it stands, I mean, who wants to be the sheriff? I don't feel like we have a bunch of upstanding citizens that are like, this is a job that I want. It's like a really particular person that we keep getting over and over and over.
I would say I think we have some folks waiting in the wings who
I hope so.
But
you must know them.
I'll just leave it there, and then back to you.
Well, no, I mean, I was going to say this, is that if the police chief of Seattle was elected position, we would know who gave the order to vacate the East Precinct. It's an appointed position. You know what I'm saying? The world might end before we actually know who gave the order to evacuate the East Precinct. Because right now, you know what I'm saying? There is no one person who's just 100% held accountable. You know what I'm saying? If the police chief was elected, then the buck stops with the chief. But, you know, we still can't get a one clear answer as to who gave the order to evacuate the precinct. So, you know, for me, I like voting and holding people accountable.
Right. Because at the very least, you can vote the person out or recall the person versus leaving it up to, again, some elected officials to do the work for you. That's just my opinion. I know I definitely know people have the opposite opinion.
It's all good. So look, we got Enrique back, so we're gonna try this again.
Hey, man, do we really got Enrique, bro? We didn't.
Oh, he's really there. I see him. I can see him.
Until I see him, until I talk to him.
I can see him back there. Hold on. Let's give it a shot. Hello, Enrique.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I
It's
can hear
Enrique.
you.
My man.
Oh. You know, I brought my rosary out today. You know, I'm a cafeteria Catholic, really because of the election. But I was holding on to this baby, trying to figure out what I was doing here to not be able to get in. Yeah.
Well, here's.
By the way, I thought that why not? I wanted to make a grand entrance. So this was my opportunity to make the entrance, folks. So
there it is. So let me do this then. On your behalf, I'm gonna pitch out this number 6 to Kevin, and I'm a exit stage left, and I'll let you guys have your show. But if you need me, call me, and I'll be.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
All right.
So
for real, man.
All right.
So-
well, are you guys done arguing now between one another?
Oh,
We're
no.
not arguing. We were in spirited,
Yeah.
engaged debate, and that is what it is about in this election season. So
Actually, I find myself, I kind of get where the idea of, like, I have some real mixed feelings about that whole thing about sheriff, because I kind of wonder, are you getting the right person? You know, and I also have to agree with Omari. I mean, the fact is that when you have an appointed position like that, there's a political element involved that, you know, when you're beholden to the person that appointed you to the position,
Yes.
and then to kind of follow what happened there. And but running for the position, I think the thing is that are we getting good enough candidates? And
true. And then when you look at that's true. And then when you look at who put in the money for the for the side on, you know, to keeping the sheriff an elected position, it was kind of like I don't know if I would necessarily these are necessarily people that I'm always aligned with. I'll say that.
And I think there's always a union issue as well that you have to deal with as well. So okay, well, I think, have we hammered that one?
I think we've hammered that one into the ground. So let's.
Well, but we're going to come right back into it just a sec, because Amendment 6 is really the other side of the coin with that, right?
All right. Well, go ahead, Kevin. Pick it up. Oh, by the way, Kevin, nice to meet you.
We've actually met before, but it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
So, Amendment 6. So what this does is currently the duties of the sheriff's office and the responsibilities of the sheriff are specified by what they call general law, by state law. There isn't like a specific set of laws within the King County Charter or county laws that sort of specify, like, here's a list of responsibilities the sheriff has. So this would make it clear that the duties of the sheriff's office are specified by the county council by a law that they pass, right? But not in the charter. The county charter, would just point to a county law, and a county law, the county council can change at any time, right? So you put these two together. If Amendment 5 passes, then the county council gets to appoint the sheriff. If Amendment 6 passes, they get to rewrite at will the responsibilities and duties of the sheriff's office, right? Now, so they're the things that this would enable along the lines of what the city of Seattle and the city council are looking at, like creating, an expanded, really kind of civilian run Department of Public Safety that, has other functions, right? They could civilianize more. They could do a whole bunch of different things, combine some different groups together, do some really interesting creative things, right? But it's an enormous amount of power that's put in the hands of the county council. That's good if you believe and trust in their ability to go enact, responsible reform, right? But if you don't, and it's not just this council, it's the next one and the one after that, then this could be a little scary.
So Kevin, let me ask you this, just in terms of for understanding. If let's say Charter Amendment 5 ends up not passing, meaning that the sheriff is still elected, is still an elected position, but Amendment 6 does end up passing. So basically what we have is that the people would essentially hire the sheriff, if you will, yet the King County Council would write the sheriff's job description. Is that an oversimplification or pretty?
That's pretty close. That's pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's kind of what it's done like in the workplace. Let's face it. So, well, why the power thing going on here? Do you know why, Kevin?
I think they feel the same pressure to reform police and policing that that other cities and counties and the state are pushing hard on. I keep hearing that police reform is going to be, and criminal justice reform in general is going to be a big topic for the state legislature in January when they get together as well. Right?
I think there's already a number of bills already on being. They're in the making right now, and that's going to be at the top of the list, along obviously with the budget. But that is a big issue.
So I think this is their way of taking a first step towards basically, getting rid of some impediments of letting them do some police reform. If every change to policing requires, a county charter amendment that, that the people need to vote on, right? You're only going to be, you're going to be waiting months and months and months to get these things through. Right?
Gotcha. Yeah. And I know police reform isn't just something that's happening here, obviously, in this county. Do you see that other counties across the state, do you think that they'll be watching what happens here at King County in terms of what they do potentially with their law enforcement?
Yeah. And in fact, I think in a lot of ways, there'll be a lot of cities and counties that are probably maybe a little more receptive to what the county does than what the city does, what the city of Seattle does. I think there's a lot of folks in the state, particularly on the eastern side of the Cascades, who look at Seattle itself and go, well, they're crazy liberals, right? And you're gonna go overboard on this stuff. Where the county, and I think a lot of people realize that the county is much more diverse, much more politically diverse. You look at just something like the regional homeless authority that they're putting together, right? And it's it's gotten bogged down a few times trying to put this together, because just within King County, and the county and the city of Seattle seem to be pretty much on the same page, but the rest of the smaller cities, including Bellevue, are really not quite on the same page in terms of how they want to approach homelessness. And I think we're going to see the same thing with police reform, right? That largely the King County Council and the Seattle City Council are close to the same page on this stuff. And then the farther you get out in the county, there's going to be a wider range of views of that. But
some of these other smaller cities also are suddenly, well, I mean, I don't know if you'd say Bellevue is in a smaller city, but suddenly they get a taste of some of the protests and things like that they'd never had before, which I think is a real awakening there, because they obviously got, when they had the one protest there that then turned into looting and vandalism, I think it really just shocked them. It obviously shocked the people in the communities there. That was hard for them to take. It's like, oh, hey, they've come to my backyard. And it was just a rude awakening, I think, for lots of those folks. So, yeah. I
think, it's going to be interesting to watch South King County, the cities in South King County, right? Because they certainly have a lot more racial diversity these days, well, than they did 10 years ago. But then a lot of...
The most diverse city in King County, correct?
Yeah, and compared to East King County and North King County, so and yet they're in this smaller city kind of category in the county. So I think where they land on police reform is going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, I heard a statistic that 50% of the Latinos live in South King County now. And obviously from gentrification that's pushed them out, other people that have come here to live here and to work in different parts of the area, but can't afford to live in Seattle, so that's a big part of it. Should we move on here?
Yeah. Why don't we move to King County Prop 1? Is so Kevin, I've heard some people call this a giveaway to Harborview. What is the real about this one?
So this is it a giveaway to Harborview? It's certainly a huge investment. It would be up to like a little over $1.7 billion of bonds that be paid back with property tax revenues. So they'd up the property tax a little bit. It's for a bunch of different things at Harborview Medical Center. Construction, renovation of existing buildings, increasing their critical healthcare capacity, updated and expanded infection control capacity. Some good things for the community, like increased capacity for behavioral health services, for substance use and mental health treatment facilities, some seismic upgrades. This is another one in the booklet where there was actually no written opposition to this at all. But it's certainly a lot of money. But I think we tend to underestimate the importance of Harborview to the overall healthcare system here in Western Washington, right? From Centralia all the way up through Bellingham. If the Harborview is the central trauma center,
right.
And
they even had people right when the COVID cases were pretty high. I think in Eastern Washington, didn't they have some folks who were actually flying into the Harborview to be treated? Yeah,
I think that's right. And back in March, when the COVID crisis was really taking hold, Harborview is the designated sort of emergency core center hospital for Western Washington. So it was really kind of the hub of all the planning and activity around how healthcare facilities, how medical facilities would respond, right? So it is an amazing facility. It's an amazing resource for us. We would be lost here if we didn't have it. That doesn't necessarily mean we should give them everything they want, but we should appreciate it for what it is and what it does for a community, and make sure we are thoughtfully doing the right things to make sure that we maintain that.
I agree with that, because how many times have people that have been in bad accidents, I know that having come from Central Washington, that they have been brought to Harborview. Also people that have been in serious situations regarding burns. Harborview is the place for a trauma center. I know that I believe that Everett and Providence Hospital is also trying to build a facility there. But right now it's Harborview, and that's the place. So,
I would just note it'd be great if they had some medical facilities over in South Seattle as well. But that's a story for another time and another day. Yeah. Anyhow.
So one of the things I like in this is they actually want to dedicate some of this to increasing capacity for behavioral health services. We are at such a critical dearth of substance abuse and mental health treatment programs, right? And we need so much more than we have right now. So any investment in increasing that, and any of the facilities around the county and the region is just a really, really important thing to do.
Which comes back to our homeless issue.
Yeah, in a big way.
Really taking it over. I mean, I think that homelessness at the heart of it is, I can't say the percentage, but so many people that really have mental health issues that then are only added to by other issues of addiction to alcohol and to, opioids and other types of drugs. So that is, the critical thing. And I think now COVID's going to add to that. I think there's little doubt about that. Anyway, Harborview gets my money. That's fine.
That's Enrique, that's an interesting point. One of the things that the medical research has really found, now that we're several months into COVID, is that, and we've all heard a little bit about this already, there are, for some set of people, long-term effects of it, right? To their lungs, to some of their brain, to some liver, other organs in the body, and we don't know yet what it's going to mean to our healthcare system to come out of the COVID crisis. We don't know how many people in the Seattle area, in the state, in the country as a whole, are going to be living the rest of their lives with with the effects, the long-lasting effects of COVID. And, that's just, another plug for Harborview here. Having, UW Medical Center and having Harborview here. And by the way, the UW provides most of the doctors for actually running Harborview. That partnership between those two and the facilities that they provide are going to be incredibly important as we come out of this pandemic and understand what the long-term consequences are.
I think you bring up a very good point about what the long-term effects, that we don't know these things, which only makes it even more just disturbing with what we're dealing with. Because I think that there are going to be so many people, and we're not talking about just seniors. I mean, we're talking about,
kids,
people, yes, that are going to be dealing with for a long time to come. And it really, I think, it shows that it's spanned an age range, and we still don't know enough about how all of that's going to play out. So very critical issue there, which, brings me to a whole other different subject of, pounding my head about how we're handling this whole COVID thing, or how we haven't handled it. All right. Do we want to move on to the next one here, folks?
Yeah, so let's keep with the symmetry of Proposition 1, this time though in Seattle.
Right. Transit benefit district renewal. Kevin?
Yeah. So we're just at the end of this year, we're finishing up the 6-year transit benefit district that's been paying for a lot of extra Metro bus service and a handful of other things. The one that's expiring had a $60 car tab and a 0.1% sales tax. And then we had an initiative 976, and now we've got some clarity on that. But earlier this year, when the city council was trying to figure out, okay, what do we do to renew this thing? They weren't sure at all that they were going to be able to do a car tab again, right? So what they proposed, with what people were voting on today, was a 0.15% sales tax. So it's a 50% increase in the sales tax, but no car tab fee. They think, across the 6 years, it would bring in on average about $27 million a year, and really supporting much of the same things. So buying a lot of extra Metro service all the way out to the sort of the city borders, right? And programs supporting transit access for low-income residents, workers, seniors, youth, college students, a little bit of transit infrastructure maintenance and capital improvements. Some emerging mobility needs due to COVID and the West Seattle Bridge closure, and there was no written opposition to this either. So hopefully this won't go through. They, just the city council right now, SDOT's budget took a big hit this year because they didn't know whether they would have the transit benefit district to rely on. So if this passes, then probably either before they finish up the budget at the end of this month, or in a revision in January, the city council and the mayor will be able to put a bunch more money into SDOT, which will just be a really, really great thing.
Well, I wanted to ask Mike to weigh in on this one too, really quickly, because I know it also will provide free Orca cards for students. And so, Mike, I know that's been something that you obviously support, but obviously sales tax can be regressive, and so I know that you have mixed feelings about that as well. But is this something you support?
Absolutely. We need public transit in Seattle, and you hit it on the head when you said the Orca cards, man. Those are for students. Those are the kids. I'm always going to be for anything that's going to help the kids. We need our kids to be able to have access to transportation, for the young high schoolers going to school, even for the young high schoolers trying to enter the workforce. Like, they need to be able to get around. And one of the benefits to living in a city like Seattle is our transit system, man. When you leave Seattle, a lot of other cities, they don't have it like this easy to just hop on a bus or a train or a streetcar to get to where you need to go. So I'm 100% behind you.
All right, Mike loves the kids, and he loves transit too. I like that.
Yeah.
All right.
And the transit benefit district was really important because what it did is when SDOT sort of bought more service from Metro, what it did is it made sure that several of the or kind of arterial lines in the Metro system got all day service, right? To the point where you didn't have to go look up the schedule, right? You just walk to the bus stop and there'll be a bus within, 15 minutes max, probably 10 minutes, right? And that makes such a huge difference, right? People are so much more willing to take transit when they don't have to schedule their entire life around it, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about, well, I really have to get off work at 5 p.m. Otherwise, I'm going to miss that bus, and then that's going to be an hour and a half before I get the next bus, right?
Yeah.
They know they just get off work, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes late, walk to the bus stop, and they will get home within, a reasonable amount of time. That is just is life-changing. And SDOT did a good job of managing the money and spending it wisely, so it really made the transit system much more viable for a lot of people.
All right, we want to move on here to Referendum 90, and that's the mandatory sex ed curriculum. That's a hot button issue.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
it always has been.
Yeah, well, all you got to do is say sex.
Sex.
Sex. Yeah. All right.
So this is a referendum. So this is one where the state legislature actually passed a law, and then it's going out to referendum, so the voters get a chance to decide whether they actually want this law to go on the books or want to reject it. It requires public schools to provide comprehensive, age-appropriate sexual health education. Parents would still, as they do today, have the choice whether to exclude their children or not. Right now, today, every school district in the state can decide whether to offer sex ed or not. If they offer sex ed, then the state has sort of mandatory requirements for what needs to be included in that. But they can choose not to do it at all, right? If they choose to do it under the current law, parents have the ability to exclude their children from it, and they would still have that ability. The new law updates the curricular requirements, and requires it to include interpersonal skills to reduce health risks, choose healthy behaviors and relationships, have relationships that are, allow people to, have relationships that are free from violence, coercion, intimidation. It requires talking about affirmative consent and how people should respond when there's a risk of violence present. And that could include bystander training as well, right? So now the opposition to this, a lot of this is standard fare. It's like, the blurbs in the booklet say, this is a blatant power grab by Olympia, and they're trying to, that we should resist the early sexualization of children. But something that might be a slightly, more honest critique of it is saying that, there are a lot of schools in the state that are failing at basic literacy and numeracy, right? So if we're going to go require school districts to go, invest in curriculum, is this the highest priority, right? If our kids can't read well and can't do math. I have a teeny bit of sympathy for this, but I think a lot of, the other, just, editorializing a bit here, a lot of the other, objections that people tend to have over this are pretty overblown.
Yeah.
Well, we want to bring in somebody who we know definitely does not have an objection to this, and this is our wonderful special guest, Deontay Lampier. This brother over here is running for he's a candidate for the presidency of the NAACP Seattle County branch, and he wrote what I will say is one of the most eloquently worded and just it tugged at my heartstrings and my mother's heartstrings. Op-ed about your support for I-90. And so, Deontay, just such a pleasure to have you here tonight. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate you all for having me. Marcus, you know how much I appreciate you, brother. And I mean, especially when it comes to this bill. I think, it's one of those things when it came to Referendum 90, and I actually had a discussion with Claire Wilson about the bill itself. And just in the spaces of having a discussion with kids K through third grade about safety is essential. We have a lot of younger kids under the age of 12 that are sexually abused. And usually, I think statistics show like 93% of those young children under the age of 12 know their abusers. We have to start teaching our children about consent. I can understand where parents may, and the other thing that's also great about this bill too is like parents do get this curriculum, the curriculum that will be taught to their children a month before. So if you would like to opt out your child, you can. I think it's essential for our community, minority communities, to know about sexual risk. If we are saying 1 out of 2 Black men who have sex with men are diagnosed with HIV in this nation, I mean, in America, that means that we need to start letting our kids know early about what sexual risk looks like. Young Black women are being, young Black women under the age of 24 are being diagnosed with HPV. We are not without enough knowing about what the risk factors are in that space. So, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I thought you had stopped. Go ahead.
So Referendum 90 is essential. I think, within our community, it's like, oh, well, I don't want my kids learning. I don't want nobody teaching my children about sex, but it's sexual education. And I think it's very important for us for our kids to understand what boundaries look like. And that's a really, really big deal. I think a lot of our community members have went through those spaces of trauma and have swept it under the rug, but it gives the young kids an opportunity to grow up in a space of being smarter when it comes to someone respecting their space.
So
has the challenge with this issue really been about people not really understanding it and what the opportunity to opt out, really, because I think once you talk about kids and you talk about sex, it can just stop you right there. But knowing the understanding of really what this is all about.
I think it's just in the space of it being and it's just an upgraded version of sex education. Kids are already learning about it already in school, but we're making it essential for children to learn about it in their classrooms. I think we are reading articles. I mean, Centoya Brown, a young girl who got whisked away from a young man, and young girls that are getting whisked up, someone invading young Black girl space. That's the thing that when I think about that space about boundaries, our young Black girls are out there in the spaces of and young binary folks our young kids are getting abused in these spaces, and we have to let them know what boundaries look like. And yes, our parents can teach you that at home, but the baton pass off is in the spaces of school, after schools, and so on.
And so Deontay, I mean, you're at the same barbershops that me and Mike, go to. Maybe some that Enrique go to. I don't know, but like, and so how in terms of how some people have greeted this with controversy and so forth. And again, when anything that has to do with sex and kids, people are like, I don't know. I mean, can you speak a little bit to the misconceptions that you've heard and what have been some of the common misconceptions around this referendum?
I think the biggest misconception, and I think it's also in the space of disconnection too, it's they are also in the classes, they are teaching information about the LGBTQ community. It's really where the main pushback is. And because we live in a progressive state, a lot of our community members who are against it won't say it, but their real issue is, I don't want my kids learning about trans people. I don't want my kids learning about the gay agenda. But what we have to understand is that 70% of homeless youth are black trans people in our community, and that's USA wide. So what I mean by that is that we need to find a way to protect those young kids. I mean, if we had more information about affirming back in the day for the LGBT community, I bet you it would have stopped less bullying. I think that by bringing this referendum, it would bring up less bullying and more conversation with affirming for our LGBTQ brothers and sisters and non-binary folks.
Okay. Mike, did you have a quick question you wanted to ask?
I did. So I'm looking in the chat, and Marcus mentioned kind of, the conversations that we hear in the community. So for me, when I did my research, a lot of what I seen, and my kids are younger, so I'm looking at the younger kids, and it was like, you know, what does appropriate touching look like? What do your boundaries look like? But there was also this idea floating around that we're going to be like teaching sexual positions to your kids. Can you put that to rest once and for all, or at least address that?
It is not that. I was literally talking. I just had a debate a couple of days ago. Someone said that, and that is not at all the case. It is teaching age appropriate. It's K through third, third through I believe it's third through sixth, and then eighth on up of appropriate education when it comes to sexual health, age appropriate. I heard that the other day, and I promise you that's the first Zoom meeting I almost got taken out of my character, because it was just like, wait a minute. I think she said they're going to show Pornhub to our students. So
people believe that, though. People believe that.
I heard that at the barbershop myself. I got to be real. So, yeah.
And somebody put it in our chat, so thank you for addressing.
Yeah. Much appreciation.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and good luck with your efforts. Appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you all, and just keep on doing what you guys are doing. And I mean, everybody watching, I am running for president of the NAACP. Please look for us and come hold us accountable, because we need it. Thank you very much. I hope you all have a blessed night.
Good luck. All right.
Good luck. Thank you.
All right. Let's take a quick break, and then we're going to check out and see what's happening nationally.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, the Big O. Want to take a moment here, first of all, to say thank you for your support of Converge Media. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. Secondly, I want to thank everybody who is a supporter of Converge Media on Patreon. We definitely appreciate your support. And for those of you might not know, I'll let you know, we operate 100% off of donations. Some donations big, most donations small, but we love all donations all the same. If you haven't done so yet, I want to encourage you to go on our website to whereweconverge.com/donate and subscribe. You click on the Patreon link and you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. There's higher tiers beyond that as well. And just know that your subscription literally keeps us on the air. Once again, I want to thank you for all your support. All right, but before we send it back over to Enrique, I got an echo over there, Bobby. Before we send it back over there to Enrique and everybody else, what's going on Capitol Hill, Bobby? Oh, we don't have any audio on Bobby. We're going to give you a second here. We got to keep our show on the road. So Bobby's up there in Capitol Hill on protest coverage. See, you were so worried about looking fresh, you didn't get your audio right. We're going to come back to you, Bobby, in a minute. All right, let me bring our host back in over here real quick. And but before I hand it back over to you guys, I want to say a big thank you to Kevin Schofield. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kevin.
It's great to
be here. You help us understand. That's what's important. Yeah.
Well, try to bring the nerd every time. So
don't try. You succeed, Kevin. You succeed.
Okay, well,
you do it well. Catch you soon. All right, and I'll pop back out of here, but let me bring up Julia, Jessie, and Mike Davis for you guys. And if you need me, let me know.
All right. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Welcome. So,
hi, I loved your guys' segment. I learned a lot.
Hey, we wish you could have joined us. It was we were missing your voice a little bit on that one, but
I need to go smack the comments.
Well, I do want to get into some of the national things now. I mean, obviously it's 8 o'clock here, and so results will be dropping soon locally. But before that happens, just want to talk a little bit about what the national landscape is doing and going on. What are y'all seeing? What are you hearing? I've heard everything from. It looks like we've got this is a tale of two Americas, where we've got a QAnon supporter who has won, and yet we also have some very progressive candidates who are winning, are picking up some seats in the House of Representatives as well. So, what do you make of it, Julia?
I mean, it seems pretty split right now. I mean, I think I'm so locked into the presidential race right now. It's super close to call. I can't even think beyond that yet. I'm focused on who is going to be the president, and then I think I can kind of celebrate everything.
Do you want my rosary? Do you want my rosary?
Yes,
do you want this bottle of rum that I got underneath this desk? That's it. But but let's go ahead and talk about the big ticket race though. What are things looking like now between Biden and Trump?
Oh, it's just so close. It is so close, and it's really coming down to, I think, about 4 of our battleground states. We know that we need 270 to win it. Right now, it's coming down to Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and
North Carolina. Did North Carolina go?
North Carolina. I gotta see it. I gotta see it come back up. So it's coming close. I mean, I was into your guys' segment, so I wasn't focusing on it. But right now, it's coming down to Arizona, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Arizona is showing Biden at 53%. I mean, it really could be anybody's game. And I'm really curious about Georgia. I want to see how that's going to go. Okay, it looks like we have some live footage.
Hey,
I'm looking at the New York Times right now, and it's looking like it looks like some of the battleground states. It looks like Biden's up by 9 points.
And at this point, Lindsey Graham looks like he's going to be going back. Now, there was a lot of money that was spent in that one.
And he needed it. Lindsey Graham needed it, and I'm surprised. He was a true Trumpster all the way through. I really didn't think that he was going to hold very strong, but he knows next go around he's got to really put some investment into his campaign to back him.
What are y'all thinking about? Are hearing about Texas? It looks like Trump is up 5 points now, but it still looks fairly close. I mean, relatively close for what typically it has been a red state, at least in since LBJ, I want to say. So
I thought about that earlier when they were talking about that Texas could flip to blue, and I was like, really? That wasn't even projected. So Beyonce came out today and said that she supported, or last night that she was supporting Joe Biden. So she has 20 million followers on her Instagram or something like that. Probably way more than that. I mean, when you have an influence over millions and you post something like that, I mean, social media is a giant and could really flip a switch. So I'm not going to say that. I'm not crediting Beyonce for flipping the state. Right. I'm not going there, guys.
But did she at least maybe make up for the folks who switched to Trump because Ice Cube and 50 Cent? I mean, did she at least do some damage control? That's what I want to know.
I think that Julia's right though. Just mentioning Beyonce, I think that as we've seen like the early numbers of just how many people voted, I think that made it seem like Biden might really, really have a fighter's chance. I mean, I was on the fence, a couple of days ago, like I have no idea where this is going to go. But I mean, you see the Republican platform this whole time has been trying to suppress vote and stop people from voting. And from the numbers that are rolling in, it looks like people are voting in masses everywhere. So if Beyonce got out there and got her followers to vote, those were Biden votes. And Texas being close is surprising, man. North Carolina was a little surprising. Ohio was surprising. I'm still waiting to see what's going to happen in Florida. Like even in some of these states, it's looking like Biden might ultimately lose. He made up a lot of ground and he got a lot more votes than people thought in some of these traditional red states.
Right. How is it looking? Because I mean, we were all there at that train wreck that was 2016. How is it looking in comparison at this point in the night in comparison to 2016? Are folks a little bit more hopeful? A little? Are you about as dire? Are you still pins and needles? What's going? What is the mood at this moment for you all?
I think Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm not celebrating until tomorrow morning because, listen, when I went to sleep when Hillary Clinton ran, I was like, oh, she won this. I went to bed. I woke up and I was like, oh, my God, Donald Trump is the president. And my kids were just like, who won? And they were like, oh, my God, Donald Trump won. What's going to happen to the world? So,
yeah,
I'm not calling it victory until I see these numbers, until Donald Trump concedes. I mean, we have a long road ahead.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm in that same boat. And, before I got on here, I'm looking at pictures of the White House barricaded. So I don't think I'm ready to call it until Trump and he's going to leave. Because I don't know if they're trying to keep people out or if he's trying to keep himself in. So this could still be really interesting.
Good observation.
I'm just gonna say you ain't gonna get that observation on MSNBC or CNN. So much love. You only get that on the Converge South Seattle Emerald election night special. So
Well, I
right
think
here.
that I'm still concerned that there could be some civil violence that could take place. I think, and I haven't heard of anything happening at this point or anything like that. I do think that right now it's really it's based on a lot of counties and also the early voting and the people that voted today, and that could really change the tide a bit. I did talk to a pollster today, a guy named Matt Barreto, who used to run the Washington poll here in Seattle. He was a University of Washington political science professor, now down at UCLA. He co-founded Latino Decisions, and which is a national polling firm. Now, he said that he believed that Biden would pull it out with over 300 votes, with 300 electoral college votes. And depending on if he was able to get North Carolina, that would be even bigger than that. Now, looking at what I'm seeing now, everything looks pretty tight. So, he has been pretty accurate through the years. But then, what happened 4 years ago still has me just shaking my head at times. So
Well,
I think we just got to hang in there, wait and see, and I will be clutching my rosary.
Right. Well, I'll say this, Enrique. I mean, and this is unscientific, but I remember that at 808 and on 2016, Hillary Clinton, I want to say, was down at this point, and Biden is up 192 to 117. Yeah. The main reason I know that's when the rum started to flow at the bar that I was at, and it didn't stop all night. But this night, it's looking like it may be. It's looking like, as you said, Julia, that it's very close to call.
You went to a ball in 2016, man. That's a bold move.
We didn't have the infrastructure that we have at the Emerald now, so we had to work from different places. You know what I'm saying? But that's another story for another day. All that being said, what's to the Enrique brought it up earlier about there were so many people who were talking about they were fearful of national violence and so forth. I was even at the barbershop today talking to somebody who's usually fairly easygoing and mild mannered. He was like, "Man, I ordered a semi-automatic shotgun and so forth." I mean, do y'all think that has been overblown somewhat in terms of the violence? I mean, people talking about this is going to be the Purge 2020. If those not familiar with that movie franchise, that's when the one day in America that people can come out and shoot people with impunity. I mean, I'm naive. I just think that there's more people who want to have some level of civility. I'm not saying that they don't aren't filled with righteous rage and all that other stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I think we've just been so fatigued leading up to this moment that that the steam has kind of went out of the tea kettle somewhat. I know, Julia, what's your opinion about that?
Listen, if you think for 1 second that either way, from either side, if Joe Biden wins, it's going to be unrest from people from the other side, and vice versa. I think it's going to be an upset because we are so divided as a country right now. Do I think it's going to be the purge? Absolutely not. But we are in, a significant time where we're in the middle of a pandemic. We have millions of people out of work. There's so much indecision and just unrest already with everything that's going on around policy and legislation that this is really going to change the trajectory of how we begin to move forward. And if we plan to heal as a country or continue to just have these open wounds. So I don't necessarily think, it's going to be like we're going to have to break out the guns or anything like that. But people are going to be aggressive and they are going to let their frustrations be heard for sure.
I don't know, Mike, what you think about that?
The White House is barricaded with unscalable walls, man. On a serious tip, though, I don't think that you're being naive in that, Marcus. I just think that you live in Seattle, man, and where we live is a little more liberal leaning. So when it comes to unrest, are we going to have that here? I kind of doubt it. Like, you know, there might be some windows shattered and some stuff like that, but I don't think it'll get too heavy. But I have family in the South, and there are people in the South that are legitimately scared of the outcome. So I think it's a regional thing, and where you live. No, I don't think that it's going to turn into the purge, but I do think that we might have some unrest, and there may be some reports coming out in the next few days.
Well, to the point, I should have mentioned it earlier that, right, I mean, we have seen a vast increase in folks who are buying guns. I want to say the data that I saw said that there was a 93% increase just in the state of Washington from September 2019 to September of 2020. So it's like, well, why are people doing this, right? Unless they're fearful of something, right?
It's true, and after a gun owner, I can tell you it's been damn near impossible to buy ammo around here. So, people
is it like that Chris? Is it like that Chris Rock joke where it's like we need bullet control, where it's like it should be $1,000 a bullet?
There was a time get bullets or toilet paper, and that was just the reality that we was living in. So you're right about that, but I really just think it's going to be where you live. I think that Trump's support of the Proud Boys has not helped the situation at all. I can see if Trump would have won, their celebrations could have led to violence. And if Trump loses, I think they're going to be pissed, and that can also lead to violence. So if you're somewhere where you're seeing a lot of Proud Boys in your area, you should probably be tonight. Don't watch this election at the bar. This is not the year for that.
No, well, you see that I'm on my palatial estate in Scotland, so yes.
You know, I think that the one thing that I find just really bothers me is just the fact that we are even talking about things this way. You know, the fact that we have devolved or gone downward, and our sense of decency and the fact that our common sense or lack of it, we have just we sort of hit a low. And I do think that people are really tired. I'm tired about all this stuff. I'm tired of, you know, I'm glad I'm not doing daily news anymore. Man, it would be just crazy because it's just things changes every 5 minutes. And that's just not, that isn't stability. That isn't the way I want to live. But, you know, something has to change for us to get some stability back. But amidst all of this, we have a pandemic, folks. Yeah. We have a pandemic. And are we not really realizing the fact that, you know, we got people dying every day, and that we also are facing the issue of a flu season, and on top of that, the pandemic, and not listening to what we should do to try to take care of ourselves? So we're in a world of hurt, and I just would really like to see things get some stability. And I'm afraid that if it doesn't go the right way, we're not going to have that.
But Enrique, I mean, that's what you just said. I mean, that's the onus for me, that for all of us to come together. We have these issues you just stated with COVID, income equality, everything else that we got. These are issues that we have to resolve as a country. And I guess I'm just tired at this point. I mean, there has just been so much polarization, so many people fighting against each other, so much demonization. And it's like, it's just time at this point. It's just time. Whatever happens with this election, it is just time for us to come together in some level of reconciliation. That does not mean you have to support whoever ends up winning as the president. It does mean we need to come together in some way to solve some of this stuff, though.
I'm with you. I'd like that to happen. I'd like that for us to be in that situation. But if this election doesn't come where there's going to be some change, is that person that is currently in the White House going to do that?
No,
I don't think so.
That is right.
I mean,
and that's a scary option.
And I'm sorry, Julia, that you had something to say.
I mean, Enrique, I agree with your sentiments exactly. Like, we have to bring some stability back, right? We need to. The whole conversation that we're having about is about hope and like unity, and just like putting back the moral compass back into the United States. And that's what we have lost. I mean, look at the people around the world looking at our country. People are so disappointed. I mean, we have people all across the world watching our election to see how we as citizens decide this next election, how we're going to move forward, because we want some peace. We really just want peace. And I think ultimately, leadership comes from the top. And so if we don't have the right elected official to choose the people who are going to be in his downline or in her downline, Kamala Harris,
Yes.
then we are going downhill in a bad way. So,
well, I say is, I mean, I see what you're saying, Julia. I mean, I always say that to me, I think it comes from the ground up in terms of leadership, or at least it should, right? I just remember what I was reading the Walt Whitman poem today, and he talked about he is there for you, and he, he had gendered it because he was, in the 1900s or whatever. But essentially, what it was saying is that why do our elected officials convene every first month of the year? Why does the person occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? It's because he or she or they are there for us, right? And we as a people just need to continue to remind folks of that all the time. And I'm just tired of these folks thinking that they have some sort of narcissistic conception that they are leaders. They are representatives of us. There's nowhere in our Constitution that says leader. It says you are a representative of the people. And that is what we need.
It says we the people. Hey, we got to take a quick break here.
Sorry, man, I'm fired up with you, Julia.
I can tell.
We need to come on more often together.
Yeah. You're gonna come back, right, Julia? You're gonna come back. You're up all night, right, Julia? Yeah, you're gonna be up all night, so you stay with us. All right, take a quick break, and we'll come on back and continue. All right, thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, the Big O. Want to take a moment here, first of all, to say thank you for your support of Converge Media. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. Secondly, I want to thank everybody who is a supporter of Converge Media on Patreon. We definitely appreciate your support. And for those of you might not know, I'll let you know, we operate 100% off of donations. Some donations big, most donations small, but we love all donations all the same. If you haven't done so yet, I want to encourage you to go on our website to whereweconverge.com/donate and subscribe. You click on the Patreon link and you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. There's higher tiers beyond that as well. And just know that your subscription literally keeps us on the air. Once again, I want to thank you for all your support. All right, real quick, taking a break in the action from the political pundits there. Bobby, can you hear me now? And now we can't hear you, man. You got the most technical difficulties up there. But Bobby says, so Bobby's up there in front of the East Precinct right now. We're keeping an eye on everything there. But what he did say in chat, you got to figure this stuff out, Bobby. This is what happens. You put so much attention into your wardrobe and none into your microphone. But what he did just chat is that he said it was 50 bike cops just left from up there into downtown. It's a lot of protests on Capitol Hill. We're gonna try to get your audio situation figured out, but we're monitoring the situation up on Capitol Hill throughout the evening, and hopefully we can get your mics on, Bobby. But you do look great, by the way. You look fantastic. All right, we'll get you back soon. Let me bring it back here with Enrique and Marcus, and
Boy, I know how Bobby feels.
I'd have been there many a night.
Yeah. Well, I should have given him the rosary. I really know how he feels.
It's a lot of.
Omari, did he tell you if was there much activity happening in the street?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of people that are out. What he was saying here in the chat is that there was a large number of bicycle officers that are now left from Capitol Hill and headed into the downtown area, and so we'll be following up on this all night. You know, I talked to OPA director, or Office of Police Accountability Director Meyerberg last night. He said that OPA is out on the streets. They got people monitoring situations, new police tactics. I mean, it's a very interesting night. So even after this show, you know what I'm saying, we'll be out there, but we'll stay in touch here with Bobby. But I want to let you guys know here real quick is that in your waiting room, you have Monisha Harrell and you have Lola Peters. Should I let them in the room?
Right. Oh, please do. Two of my favorite folks.
All right. Well, if you need me, let me know.
All right.
Absolutely.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, good evening. Good evening.
Man,
Good evening.
Well, Monisha and Lola, it is such a pleasure to have both of you here today.
Hey, Manisha.
Hey, Lola, how you doing?
Hi, it's been a while.
Let's tell folks a little bit, make sure that they, those tuning in, know who we're talking to here. And Monisha is with the Washington Coalition for Police Accountability, Deputy Monitor for SPD in the U.S. Department of Justice Consent Decree. And Lola, she does some writing as a columnist for an editor at large for Crosscut, as well as the South Seattle Emerald. So thank you all for being with us tonight. How are you feeling about things? Lola, how about you? How are you feeling?
How am I feeling? I'm trying not to. It's like, okay, I'm not going to feel until this is done. So not anxious, that's not the right word, but curious. I guess because, I've been here a few times. And so I kind of look at this and say, my mind has already gone to what's next? What do we do next? Because either way, no matter who wins, both on the national level and on the local level, there's a lot to do. And quite honestly, tomorrow morning, right, is the beginning of our local 2021 elections. Yeah. So what are we going to do there? So that's how my mind works.
Yeah. No, I think you got to start making sure that you think about the future here. How about you, Monisha?
It's been a terrible day all day. I think everybody, this level of anxiety is high. I didn't know what to expect in 2016. The polls were dramatically wrong in 2016. And so we didn't have this lead up to this sense of dread. And we've learned that polls don't vote. And so I think there's just been this sense of, well, what is next? There are some people who in 2016 said, I couldn't have imagined this last 4 years. I couldn't imagine what could have occurred during the last 4 years. Well, those of us who felt that dread at that time, we could imagine it. And to be honest, I imagined it, and it's been actually worse than what I had imagined. Mm-hmm. So I cannot comprehend another 4 years where there's not this desire to have to, that first 4 years is you're trying to impress people because you're running for re-election. If you've decided you don't have to try to impress people anymore, what does that mean? And I think we've seen federal administration that has shown no depths for, no lack of depth for cruelty. And that's frightening for our people. So I don't know what that means. Every trick has been tried. They tried to dismantle the U.S. postal system in order to keep people from voting during a pandemic. They have, we've gotten one stimulus package for COVID for average everyday people, and yet we've managed to get a couple Supreme Court justices in. So it is going to be a rough time period for our country and for those who are committed to a country where all people have an opportunity.
Well, I'll say if the first 4 years was an attempt at trying to impress the American people, that was quite an interesting way to do it from this administration. But Monisha, I want to ask you. So many people talk about this this presidential election, being a referendum on this country, and so depending on which way it goes, what will the results say about this country?
Well, I think what it says is that I think regardless of what the results are, I think the rest of the world has taken their blinders off on who we are, right? We were supposed to be the world leader. We were supposed to be the moral compass. That was the ground that we held. And that was who we told people we are. We are the moral compass. The United States is the big brother to everybody else in this world. And what we have shown them is that we have not earned that status, right? If we are the ones you're looking to for a moral compass, you are looking in the wrong place. And this election shouldn't even be close. But the fact that it is close, it almost doesn't matter to the rest of the world what the final outcome is, because we have shown them who we are. They don't have to believe the posturing of what we say anymore when we have shown them our true colors. We have shown people that you can have, that you can be the most cruel and you can seek to just humiliate people and not lift them up and put people in cages. And whoever thought we would come back to a day where there was involuntary sterilization of women again, that we know about. And this is something, if this was in another country, we would go, we would invade them, we would take them in front of the UN. But this is us, and so apparently it's okay, because
And we
know
can lose children.
Yeah.
We can lose children, which is just mind-boggling that we're at this point.
Lola, I wanted really quickly, Lola, I wanted to pose that same question to you for your evaluation. Depending on the results of tonight, and we may not know tonight, obviously, but depending on whenever they do come in, what is your assessment on what the results mean for America?
I think there are a couple of things that come readily to mind, and Monisha just laid out the case for them. And that is that my hope is that it will be the end of the great American myth. Because the truth of the matter is, this country has hidden under a layer of benevolence and goodness and all of that. And there has always been this other layer of just pure evil. And I'm hoping at some point, and my hope is really in the younger generations, that they will really redefine what it means to be moral. One of the tragedies that we faced in 1995, I gave a speech in Washington, D.C. to a group of Jewish leaders from around the country. And I said to them, if we're not careful, we are on the road to becoming the next Nazi Germany. And they were furious with me. And the reason they were so mad at me was they were convinced that that just couldn't happen in this country. And they couldn't believe that there was anything that could happen in this country that would drive us to that space. But what we see, and I think, I've been thinking about this so much today, that communities of color have never lied to this country about what it is. We have always told this country the truth about it, about what it really is. And I'm not the person who says America is all bad, the US is a terrible country. That's not what I believe. I believe that there's an aspiration in our preamble. The preamble to our Constitution is our vision statement. And we keep saying to ourselves that we've reached it, and we haven't. And so my hope is that not only has the country had an opportunity to really examine that myth and the vision statement, but that the world has seen it for what it is as well. Because so much of the world, talk to immigrants who come here from all over the world, and they will tell you they come here with aspirations that are tied to that preamble. They don't come here for a white picket fence and all that stuff. They come here to really have a sense of liberty about their lives. And then they come, and depending on where they're coming from, if they come from Ireland, if they come from Slovenia, they may have that opportunity. But for those who come from Asia or Africa or South America or many of the islands, those of us who are from the brown and black countries, we quickly discover that that's just not the way it really is. And it's tragic because there is that vision, which is such a beautiful, powerful vision. And it just isn't. So that's my hope. That is what I think about.
I always had heard that America was built on an idea. And I always kind of wonder, okay, what did that mean, really? Well, I mean, the idea that it would be a place for opportunity, it would be a place for the chance for all of us to be equal, the chance to succeed and have a life that you couldn't have elsewhere. I mean, my parents came from Mexico, and that was it. It was always a chance for them to be to give us as kids an opportunity to have something better than what they had. I mean, that was always, it was never really spoken that way, but that was pretty much what we knew. And I feel how, my kids, they're doing fine, but I just see this sense of meanness today that just is so disturbing to me, and that we're not very nice people. That's what truly.
But haven't we always? I mean,
that truly bothers me the most. And then
it's one of the,
haven't we always had that?
Oh no, I'm not saying that we haven't always had that. I mean, if you look in our history, when I look back, I mean, when I was in high school in the 60s, late 60s and 70s, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, about what it was like, and I grew up in a community that, that we had a lot of Mexican Americans. We counted on Mexican labor. We had a lot of Filipinos, and it was an agricultural area. We're on the Yakima Indian Reservation, but you still couldn't date the white girls, or you still couldn't be invited to certain things because you were of color. And I think of all the different things that we didn't have opportunities to. And I just kind of always thought, well, this will change, and this is going to change.
Yeah. There's been progress.
There's been progress. There's no doubt about that. But the reality is, now look at where we're at right now. We haven't changed that much. We are going backwards.
Yeah, Manisha, you had something to say, Manisha?
That was the call from 2016, right? Make America Great Again.
Yeah.
Right? That wasn't, everybody is like, oh, you're reading into that. No. What you're talking about, Enrique, is a past in which every single person on this screen at some point or another was not considered a whole human, a whole person. Yep. Making America Great Again takes us back to that time period where we weren't whole people. In fact, some of us were property. We were labor. And so when you talk about what it is that people voted for and what they wanted, they actually got what they wanted, right? Those of us who are expendable, those of us who are weak, those of us who are not of good stock, you can die. That's COVID. Those of us who can't be used or exploited for your labor, if you can't make me money, you're useless to me, right? Yep. So the America that they wanted, that they elected in 2016, is the exact America that we got in 2020. But those of us who didn't buy into that vision then, it was because it was never an America for us.
Right.
Exactly. That was never our America. That was not an America that we had a vision into. And if there couldn't be an honest election, right? If what you have to do to protect that is to tear apart our federal systems, to tear apart the post office, which will disproportionately harm rural communities because they have no other equitable way to get their medicines, to get the things delivered to them, they would sooner cut off their nose to spite their face in order to keep us in our place. And that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. Right. Well, Lola, I want to ask you, and I'm not going to ask you what was in that glass that you just drank from. But no.
Water. That's water.
But I'll say, but I'll say this this 2020 election, it kind of reminds me very much of the French election in 2017 when you had sort of this neoliberal person in sort of middle of the road person in Emmanuel Macron, and he was going against Marine Le Pen, who was very much just explicitly fascist, did not hide it whatsoever, did not hide her intentions and what she wanted to do with taking France back to a different, almost colonialistic time period. And I remember after Macron ended up winning, a journalist said, yes, we weren't dumb like the Americans, and we chose the the lesser of the evil. But you know what? I'm tired of us always rallying around. We need to vote for this new president and this and that. We don't need a new president. We need a new constitution. We need a new way of how we conduct and engage with each other. We need a new space with which we can be brave with each other. Most of all, we need a new narrative of this country. So I ask you, and leaning on you as a storyteller and an editor and just an all-around genius human being.
Historian, really, because you've been there.
Yeah. What is the new story that we need in this country?
Yes, the new story. So, first, everyone should watch every episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Because therein lie all of the elements needed. It just when we have to write laws that say you can't abuse a child, I ask myself, what is the basic morality that requires that to be a law? Why isn't that just the norm? You shouldn't abuse a child. Hello. Why do we have to have a law for that? So, if I was going to rewrite, I would, the preamble, I think, is an absolutely magnificent piece of work. I really do. I think the aspiration within the preamble to our Constitution is everything. Because it's calling us all out to take care of each other, to understand that we don't stand alone in the world, that we are mutually responsible for each other. Now, granted that the founders of this country were certainly not including everyone in that preamble, but that doesn't make the preamble not a good document, right? So, you go from there and you say, okay, so, other than, and I know we're not supposed to use bad language here, but, other than
permission on our show.
I mean, to me, the Constitution would say, don't be an asshole. The entire Constitution.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it requires definition for some people.
Fair enough.
But I think so. I think that's where we really need to take a look at. One of the things that drove me crazy with the beginnings of this Republican Revolution that started back in 1980 or right before 1980 was that their idea of morality is purely based on sex, right? Who you have sex with, where you have sex, what kind of sex you have, what your gender is, all of those things are their idea of morality. And I wonder where all the true theologians are in this time, who can call people, and not just theologians, but philosophers and thinkers, who can call the nation to a place where morality is not that. Morality is, where is your kindness? Where is your ability to create space for people who are not like you? I mean, one of the pieces I'm thinking of writing, one of the things that's haunting me right now is I wonder if the people in the Midwest who hate the people on the West and East Coasts, or act as if they do, I wonder if they realize those are their children and grandchildren who left home and never came back. And I wonder if they ask themselves, why did they choose not to come back? What is it that they found that feeds them in a way that being here with us in our Midwestern life doesn't feed them? Because I think, those of us who live on the edges of the continent, if you will, we are thrown together with all kinds of folks. And as a result, we learn to redefine ourselves and our space and our reality, because we find out that regardless of what you look like or who you have sex with or what what you like to eat or whatever, in fact, that I would probably like to eat what you eat, which is our favorite thing to do. But that regardless of all those things, there is a moral person that lives inside that and that's the one you need to have a relationship with, not the externals.
I want to ask a quick question of both of you before we need to take a break to check some election returns. Are you still ready to continue to press on, Manisha?
Absolutely. I mean, here's I find a lot of solace in reading, and particularly reading from our past philosophers, even if we had different theories, right? Thomas Jefferson was not a an ideal character from today's standards, but a deep thinker. And I think about some of what he wrote in terms of, should we be bound to wear, should a grown man be bound to wear the clothes that he had as a child? That would be ridiculous. And so our laws and rules need to change to grow with us. Otherwise, we are doing exactly that, which is we're forcing the country to wear, a grown adult is being forced to wear the clothes that they would wear as a child. And I also, I tie that into James Baldwin, who will also tell you, you cannot fix what you are not willing to face, right? These are the two most critical problems that we have as a country. Is we've always been fairly young in comparison to the rest of the world. And we thought we had all of the answers. We thought we were not burdened by our past because we were so young. But we refuse to acknowledge our frailty. We refuse to acknowledge the fact that we have work to do. And this country will only be saved by those who are willing to accept the work that we have to do and actually get to work doing it. So, whatever happens, I got to wake up tomorrow and I got to get the work done. And I know that we fortunately live in a state where there's a lot of people who will be committed to the work. So we're in good company here in Washington.
Yeah, there's a lot of work. How about you, Lola?
I completely agree. Thank you for that, Manisha. That was beautiful. Yes, we are. Tomorrow morning is the beginning of the next election, but it's also our opportunity to redefine what we want. And, our problem has been that we continue to vote for people rather than asking the question, what is the vision that we have for the future? And who can we entrust? And who are the people, not the person, but the people who can entrust to enact that vision? And we need to make that change. And I will hammer that home for the next year, if not longer, for the rest of my days. That's my job.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, both of you. Talk about a lot of good insights and wisdom. I appreciate it. So
Thank
we'll
you.
take a quick break and all right. Well, hang in there. It ain't over yet. And I'll lend you my rosary. How's that? Okay. All right, we'll take a
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, the Big O. Want to take a moment here, first of all, to say thank you for your support of Converge Media. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. Secondly, I want to thank everybody who is a supporter of Converge Media on Patreon. We definitely appreciate your support. And for those of you might not know, I'll let you know, we operate 100% off of donations. Some donations big, most donations small, but we love all donations all the same. If you haven't done so yet, I want to encourage you to go on our website to whereweconverge.com/donate and subscribe. You click on the Patreon link and you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. There's higher tiers beyond that as well. And just know that your subscription literally keeps us on the air. Once again, I want to thank you for all your support. All right, we're going to try this again. Can you hear me, Bobby?
I can hear you. Can you hear me, sir?
All right, this is good. So before we get back to Enrique and Marcus, and we got a whole lot of results that are in right now. So Bobby, you're up outside of the East Precinct. You know, tonight's a big night. The city rolled out these plans for everything for tonight, protests. What are you seeing up there on Capitol Hill?
All right, a couple pieces of information I got from some reports from some locals around here, some people that we have, we know that part of the groups. So there's some of the protesters from the park have left and went downtown. We saw some of the about 50 police officers leave on bikes, head downtown. I saw there's a white van that just passed behind me. There's been numerous white vans, black vans going in and out of the precinct, picking up about 10 to 15 officers, and they're leaving and heading back downtown. We saw an armored vehicle going downtown. No reports yet of any windows smashed, looting, anything like that. Everything's been peaceful up here. Mostly it's just, wondering about what's going to happen tonight. A lot of business owners, a lot of residents coming up saying hello and just asking if we have any idea what's going on. And right now, we just know that the protesters are downtown right now, and we're following along with you guys, trying to get the election results.
Well, you look sharp. Hey, quick question, Bobby. I know Seattle Parks Department, there were some people who raised the issue because the Seattle Police Department, I guess, was going to use Seattle Parks Department vehicles, for protests to move officers around. Have you seen Seattle Parks Department vehicles moving around police officers?
Chief Scoggins was down here earlier. I think he had said something about them trying to use some of their vehicles too. I've seen many vans, none of them labeled with Seattle Parks Department. Yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of activity going in and out of the East Precinct right now. They're all heading downtown. Seeing a couple superheroes up here, but all's quiet up here. Yeah.
All right. Well, all's well. Quiet is a good thing. Let's see how long it stays that way. We'll check back in with you shortly. Okay.
All right, guys.
Okay, so let's see here. We have some results, and we'll put these up on screen. The first one, I think everybody kind of saw this coming. Governor Inslee.
Jay Inslee. Do we know what the percentages are at this point yet? But we just know that he's in the lead.
All right. Well, it's been called. So everything up here basically has been called, and then all the propositions.
Here in King County are all passing.
Yeah. And it looks like, by the way, Inslee won with about 60% of the vote.
Yeah. It's about what I think people expected. These are the propositions that we discussed earlier. Yeah. Proposition or Amendment 7, Charters Amendment 6, structures and duties of the police department.
Amendment 5,
Yep.
We're serious about police reform, so.
Right. All part
of number is that number 5? This was
number 5 and 6. Yeah. So it looks like it at least it's leading at least it's leading at the moment, right? It hasn't been called yet, or is that the case?
No, I think he was saying that they pretty much
these have been called. Oh, okay, then well, there you go.
Yeah.
And I mean, so all of these transit, Seattle number 1, King County number 1, but this was the one you were passionate about here with Deontay Demper.
Right.
Yeah. In terms of sex ed, it looks like at the end of the day that the misconceptions and the lies that were told about it didn't seem to have much of an effect on folks. So
actually, I'm actually surprised. But hey, that's a good surprise.
I also just think that it shows the changing times, and that people are, much more open than they maybe were even 4 years ago for when it comes to sex ed, that we are much more educated about things now. There isn't as much of a discriminatory opinion about this type of stuff. So
right, and that's Seattle, right?
Yeah. Well,
that's
well,
King.
that was a statewide.
King County.
Statewide.
Statewide issue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'm sure that voters from this side of the mountains, and particularly in King County, had a lot to say for passing that because
true. But I also think there was, probably some more significant numbers than we've maybe seen in the past in certain areas of Washington that that we wouldn't have maybe seen vote out, come out in as much force as they have for that initiative. Or excuse me, for that.
Yeah, and Nikki's telling us that who's directing tonight is that Referendum 90 actually has almost 60% of the vote.
So it looks like everybody who voted for Jay Inslee voted for the referendum statewide.
Yeah, that's right. They just marked it off.
Basically. Actually, more people because he got 59.8%. Inslee only got 59.6%. So there you go.
All right. So back in your waiting room here, you got Mike Davis from the South Seattle Emerald, and we've got Julia Jessie and Flores.
All right, we're back. So
we got the dynamic duo up in here.
Here's CNN is just coming across as I'm watching to the side here, and they're saying that Arizona is going for Joe Biden, and in fact, Matt Barreto, who I mentioned earlier about his from Latino Decisions. About a half hour ago, actually, I texted him and said, "Do you think Biden will still win?" And he just sent back saying that he didn't actually respond to the "Do you think Biden will still win?" But he did say that Arizona just called, and so so that takes Biden at 205 electoral votes. So
it also looks like that Gabby Gifford's husband, will be also. Taking over as what is that? Is that representative or was? Excuse me, that's for the Senate, right? In Arizona.
Senate. And that could mean that Arizona is going to have 2 Democratic senators for the first time in God knows how long.
Yeah,
Iowa.
I can't remember. So
and this is the Senate. Also, this is Steve Bullock in Montana. He is looking to win. And again, I think that. That the Democrats needed to pick up at least 3 Senate seats. Am I right about that, Julia?
So right now the Senate seats
it's tied.
Close, right?
Yeah, 43 or 43.
Oh, it's 43. Okay, so I had 42-45. So
so they've got
So I'm curious, Mike and Julia, with what you all are seeing and with Biden just taking Arizona, it looks like. What are your initial thoughts on how things are going? I know when we last checked in, you were you were on pins and needles and a little frantic here. Did have nerves cooled somewhat, or what's going on?
Well, Pennsylvania, I think, is an important. That is an important state, and right now, I believe Trump is he ahead there? Well, he's ahead in Wisconsin.
He's ahead.
Pennsylvania.
But I think there's issues of the absentee ballots that haven't been counted or that have been coming in, and I think that was also part of the Supreme Court ruling that came down. It was giving them a bit more time related to that too. So we'll have to see. This is definitely turning out to be the nail biter that I don't think that people were hoping wouldn't turn out to be. Really hoping that it was going to be more of a blowout. I know I was hoping that, but this is very much like a Seahawks game. Let's face it.
Let's hope it's more like the San Francisco game and not the Arizona one. But anyway,
there you go.
But for real, Mike and Julie, what are y'all feeling about tonight with Arizona? With what you've seen with this being a nail biter? It seems too close to call at this point. So how are you feeling about it?
Pins and needles, man. I think that we need to see what's going to happen in Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And I think, like everyone just mentioned, we're not going to know tonight, and we probably won't know tomorrow either. I mean, they're going to have to count a lot of ballots, and I just hate how that opens the door to controversy and to mistrust and all of this. So this thing might actually get ugly.
The only people that will be happy are the lawyers that'll be involved in all of this that are going to make a heck of a lot of money.
I don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm old enough to remember in I think it was 2000 election with Bush versus Gore, and we didn't know who the president was essentially for 25 days or something like that. It was, and by the time we did, people were just exhausted. So
yeah, can you say hanging Chad? I didn't even know what a hanging Chad was, and so yeah.
Well,
How old were you guys back then? I
was
mean,
like 12, and that was a big election scandal. And I remember my dad like having to explain to me like how they stole the votes in Florida, and I was like, "That's crazy. This is his brother. Like that's clearly a conflict of interest." But let me give you guys a quick update. So I was watching Fox News because you have to watch Fox News because I wanted to see if they're reporting it.
Thank you for doing that for us too, by the way.
Right, thank you. Better you than me.
Called Ohio for Trump, and they have put Biden at 223 and Trump at 166. This is a close race, you guys, and I really did not want it to. I knew it was going to come down to this. It's going to be. I'm just sick to my stomach, honestly. I'm sick. I'm just so sick.
I don't know. I'm just feeling very zen about it. You know, it's kind of like once you've done all you can do, you've done all you can do. And you know, tomorrow the sun is gonna come up and life is gonna go on. And it's at the end of the day, we have to meet it. It's just like what Lola and Manisha said. I thought that was great.
Throw me the rosary, please. Throw me the rosary.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, if I can join my esteemed colleagues here, you know, on the morning show this morning, you know, I talked about how, you know, half of my career lived overseas, and I went through 3 elections in Tanzania, 3 elections in Kenya, including the one where there was election violence there with Uhuru Kenyatta, 2 elections in Rwanda, a few elections in South Africa. And it was crazy because I remember President Magufuli in Tanzania, the day that election was there, you know, a lot of the diplomats left the country. There was all kinds of warnings from the U.S. Embassy. There was heightened security. There was APCs on the streets and everything else. And what I talked about on the morning show was that never did I imagine ever going through all those elections there and in Kenya and everything else that you would see basically it's the same things kind of going on here. They've built a huge wall around the White House. There's people, you know, deploying National Guards. There's all kinds of plans. Like it's surreal because it's like, you know, I mean, you see this. And so a lot of people would be like, man, are you stressing? I was like, no, I've kind of been here before. You know what I'm saying? But I would never imagine I would see it here in the U.S.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, what concerns me most is it being tight is just the fact that last time we went through something like this with Bush Gore is that the Supreme Court had a big role in deciding the election.
And it is as it was then a Republican Supreme Court. And except for this time, there's 6 conservative judges as opposed to 5.
Voted the Supreme Court right before the election.
Right. So this is not what.
To turn to a more hopeful note, shall we say, in a local note, it looks like all of the amendments that were on the ballot here in King County have passed. And I want to specifically talk about King County Charter Amendment 5 and 6. That was the one that was essentially King County Charter Amendment 5 was essentially the one that was going to have the King County Sheriff be appointed as opposed to elected. And so, just real quick, Mike, I wanted to ask your opinion about it, man, because I know we had a nice conversation about that earlier. And so, I mean, what do you think this is a function of? Do you think it is just a function of there's been so much of conversation and passion around police reform, and at this, we like other counties had police reform on the ballot, so to speak. So, I mean, do you think that this is that the result speaks to that?
Absolutely. I think that people want reform. They've seen an opportunity for it on the ballot and they went for it. I think like you, I'm kind of at the point where I'm like, the system is broken and needs to be torn down. But if we do anything short of tearing down the whole system, this is a step in the right direction. And hopefully, like Kevin pointed out, this will lead to having more accountability. So, I mean, we'll see where it goes. But this is one that's really hard for me to be optimistic about, because we're giving that power to the King County Executive and the King County Council, and they might feel this way today, but we don't know how they're going to feel tomorrow, next year, the year after.
Well, keep it 100 with me too, Mike, and you always do. Are you taking the over or under on 12 years? We'll have another charter amendment that we'll be voting to move the King County Sheriff to a elected position as opposed to appointed.
If I had to put money on it, I would say it's going to happen. For sure.
Yeah, it's kind of sounds like sort of rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Kevin,
Kevin, out of the things that you've seen tonight, that what we talked about earlier, anything surprise you there?
So, I mean, we're just talking about Charter Amendment number 5. It's passing about 56% so far. You know, we'll see how that drifts a little bit as they, count the rest of the votes. But they think they've got about 72% of the votes for the county count. So, it looks like it's going to hold, but not a great margin. Some of the other charter amendments passed by a little bit more. So obviously there was, some controversy among folks about that. The two Proposition 1s both passed super handily. So the Harborview one, 77.5% approved.
So Harborview is about to get paid, Kevin, is what you're saying.
We're going to get a bigger, better Harborview. And the Seattle Transportation Benefit District, 81.6% approved.
Wow.
So people
Kevin, just real quick on that one, I want to ask you, because there's, this narrative that, King County specifically, that the voters there are just tax fatigued and so forth, and yet they just voted for another tax. I mean, so I mean, what do you say to that narrative as well? With this?
I think, we'll see. I want to, in a few days when we start getting sort of more detailed results, look at how it breaks out across different regions of the county, right? To see, whether it's as popular outside of Seattle as it is. Seattle certainly, pretty much never saw a tax it didn't like. Right? The rest of the county, not quite so much. So, we'll see. There are certain classes of taxes that people tend to pay a lot for, or be pretty happy about paying for. I remember when I moved here in the late 80s and early 90s, it was still super, super car centric, and people had not really bought into transit, right? But, now I think even, looking even at the east side, looking over at Bellevue and Kirkland and Issaquah, in that region, where, they, even as they're driving down the highway, they see the light rail going in, right? You can't miss it. It's there. It's not like this ethereal thing that maybe in 15 years will show up, right? They're building it right there. And that's the kind of thing, we saw that in Seattle too, as Sound Transit started getting built out. When people saw it and, could actually ride it, they're like, oh yeah, okay, this is pretty good, right? I want some of that. So we may be seeing a little bit of that. It'll be really interesting to see. My guess is outside of Seattle Bellevue, probably, not quite so much enthusiasm for taxes.
Right. Let me clarify too that Prop 1 obviously was a Seattle. It was
a Seattle thing. Yeah. But things like Harborview, right? Harborview, is very present for us in Seattle, right? And farther you get out, unless you have an emergency, it feels less daily present for you. Right?
Got you. Was there anything else in that you saw with the charter amendments that was either surprising or that you think could has the potential that once all the votes do come in, it's looking at it's going to pass now, but it may not 2 or 3 days from now?
So the closest one was Charter Amendment 5, and again, I think that's going to pass. The Inquest one, Charter Amendment 1, is passing 81%. So people are really saying, yeah, we want that. So I think that's really good news.
Gotcha.
That's great.
But what do you also see? I mean, tonight obviously there was it's a presidential election, so there's high turnout.
Yeah.
Relative to some other elections here, and even in 2018, obviously. Do you see this momentum carrying on even into 2021? I mean, as Lola, one of our guests, Lola Peters, said yesterday, I assume you said today that tomorrow the 2021 election begins in the city, and obviously that's a mayoral election, and then you'll have 2 city council members up,
city attorney,
yeah, and so on. I mean, do you see the turnout, this momentum carrying over to that race as well?
That's a really good question. My guess is yes. Probably part of it will, depend on how the presidential race ends up, right? I think it's pretty clear that the result of the presidential race 4 years ago really got a lot of people inspired to go register to vote and start voting. We saw that very clearly in the 2018 elections, right? There was super, super high turnout in blue states. If Trump wins, and God, I hope he doesn't, because we don't need that. But if he does, I think we'll see continued super high participation. And if Biden wins, and we've got Inslee is winning handily tonight, so people may relax. I hope they don't relax. I hope they stay engaged. But
I think we all do.
There's complacency is always a risk.
Yeah.
Right. Well, it could be a tough thing to have that kind of complacency with the alternative here. All right. So we're going to take a quick break and come back with David Hackney. All right. Thanks very much.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, the Big O. Want to take a moment here, first of all, to say thank you for your support of Converge Media. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. Secondly, I want to thank everybody who is a supporter of Converge Media on Patreon. We definitely appreciate your support. And for those of you who might not know, I'll let you know, we operate 100% off of donations. Some donations big, most donations small, but we love all donations all the same. If you haven't done so yet, I want to encourage you to go on our website to whereweconverge.com/donate and subscribe. You click on the Patreon link and you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. There's higher tiers beyond that as well. And just know that your subscription literally keeps us on the air. Once again, I want to thank you for all your support.
Okay, and we are back, and we are joined now by David Hackney. David has been a candidate for Washington's 11th legislative district. District includes South Seattle, Renton, Tukwila, and a portion of Kent. And how are the numbers looking for you right now, David?
Pretty strong. With about 66% of the vote in, I was able to capture 65% to 35% to my opponent. So I'm feeling fairly confident. With that large of a drop tonight, that I will be the next representative for the 11th district.
Great.
Yeah. I was going to say, David, we begin the day knowing that we would have at least one Black representative in the state legislature, with between the winner over in the 37th district between Kirsten Harris Talley and Chakani Salisbury, but we weren't necessarily sure if you might pull through over in the 11th, but it certainly is looking like that. You actually ran against a sitting Democrat. And so can you tell us a little bit about that and what went into your decision to do that?
Sure. I mean, I knew that it was going to be a incredible challenge to run against an incumbent Democrat, but there were just concerns. The 11th district over the time that my opponent has been in office has changed to a majority minority district. And frankly, there was a concern that we weren't getting the representation that we deserved, particularly on critical issues with respect to income equality, gun violence, prevention, and protection of rights for renters. And so that's why I ran.
So what's going to be your focus, your main focus, the one thing that you really want to try to accomplish in that first session, which I think is going to be really tough considering COVID and the budget issues?
I think COVID is dictating the agenda. and it is the economic crisis that is the result of COVID. So, we're going to have to resist the knee-jerk reaction to have an austerity budget. That is going to make the recession deeper and last longer. We are going to have to maintain support for small businesses, particularly restaurants. I'm in one right now. The 50% capacity model does not work for businesses. And we are losing thousands of restaurants every month that will not magically reappear when this COVID is over. They're just not going to resurrect. We also have a childcare crisis. Again, they also are required to work at 50% capacity. We are going to have to provide government stimulus to assist them. We are also going to have to deal with employees who have been laid off because of this COVID, and not just employees who normally get unemployment, but gig workers as well. The economy grows when working Washingtonians have increased earning and spending power, so they can buy goods and services, which require businesses to expand, make capital expenditures, and hire more workers. It doesn't work when the demand is cut off because people cannot afford to go to restaurants, to get their tires changed, to buy a computer or a phone when they're broken. When those things don't happen, the economy shrinks. Then more people lose their jobs, and again, it becomes a death spiral. So we're going to have to be smart. It's about smart investments. And we're going to, in this time of COVID, we need PPEs, personal protective equipment. I believe we also need PPDs, proud progressive Democrats who are going to stand up for vulnerable communities.
How do we make this work for small businesses to be able to try to expand, as you mentioned tonight, a bit to get more people in there, and at the same time keep them safe?
So what we're going to have to do is supplement them. We're going to have to give them money to stay open so they can pay their workers and until this crisis is over. The president has suggested that the way that we have no choice but to open businesses and open the economy. That's against the advice of public health officials and is irresponsible and will only make the public health crisis worse. We're going to have to think through these things. So we're going to have to remain socially distanced. We are going to have to remain wearing masks in public. And we're going to have to provide income to allow businesses to survive during this crisis. And if workers are laid off, we are going to have to provide extended employment benefits so that they can maintain their homes, buy groceries, and other life requiring things. So this is going to be a crisis. And people say to me all the time, well, Dave, you're a socialist. How are we going to pay for it? A couple things. We've got a rainy day fund. If this is an emergency where a rainy day fund is necessary, I can't imagine what is. Secondly, we're going to have to address our upside down regressive tax system. And we're going to have to start taxing the wealthy, both in income, both in wealth, both in, what do you call it when death tax, not death tax, but
Estate tax, the estate tax.
Estate tax.
And capital gains tax.
A little bit here tonight.
No, I know you're in a celebratory mood. So yeah.
Listen, if these things have been off the table in the state of Washington, they're on the table because of this crisis, where our Republican colleagues have been able to resist it. We are now going to have to come together with a majority in the House, a majority in the Senate, and a Democratic governor, and we're going to have to change the way we provide revenue for needed services. If we don't provide these services, things are going to get worse and be much more expensive to repair later. For example, we learned that when we extend foster care from 18 to 21, we save $6 for every dollar that we spend. Those are the kind of smart investments we have to make. So you can say, well, yeah, we can just cut that. No, if you cut that, it's actually more expensive because, those that have not been extended are incarcerated or addicted or homeless. And then we have to spend that much more on social service where we could spend a lesser amount to get them into college, into trade schools, and get them, into getting their lives, moving faster.
All right, David, congratulations, I think,
David,
are in order. All right, go back to your party and
Yeah, I was gonna say, please celebrate responsibly in all the ways that
Sure.
that means these
Listen,
days.
guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being a voice on this night. And we still have a lot of things we've got to look out for on the federal level. But I think you're going to find a record number of African American legislators in the House. And the question is, will we be able to focus and use our power in a way that really helps our community?
All right. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David. You take care now.
Okay. All right. We turn now to Dowdy Abe, who's going to join us now.
I'll make sure to put the doctor in front of that because
I was getting to that part.
You called me on that a couple of times, Dr.
Right? I was getting to that. Jeez. All right, Doctor. Hey, thank you from Seattle Central College. Hey, welcome. Glad you could be with us this evening. Well, how do you feel?
I feel okay. I feel okay. Let me just say, can you hear me okay?
Yes,
we hear you great. Yeah.
Okay. Let me just say that Marcus, my guy, we'll be hitting up Island Soul, I think, pretty soon. And
yes, we will.
Mr.
Supporting the
Serna,
Black business that needs it. Yes.
That's right. That's right. And Mr. Serna, a pleasure to be amongst you. I've watched and admired your work for a long time. So,
thanks, sir.
It's a pleasure to meet you and to be speaking with you this evening.
I'm glad you're here.
Glad you're here. And Dr. Abe, I want to talk first we've seen in King County that there have been bills there have been a charter amendments that have passed that have looks like they're likely to pass, I should say, in terms of making the King County Sheriff an appointed position as opposed to an elected position. So many people talked about police reform being on the ballot this year across this country. What are your thoughts on that amendment, and then also, I mean, what are your thoughts just in general? When it comes to putting police reform on the ballot, do you see that? Do you see that potentially not just happening in this election, but going forward in terms of it being an animating factor for folks?
That's actually, I was listening earlier when you all were talking about the question of appointed versus elected. And I don't mean to turn the question back, but as I was watching that, I was wondering if I would have been able to ask at that point. I was wondering kind of, perhaps this is a discussion point, the advantages to elected versus selected in these particular positions of law enforcement. I know, if King County Sheriff were, I think, Marcus, I was hearing you saying if King County Sheriff were selected by the county council, and what if you have a far right leaning kind of law and order council? And what if they pick a sheriff? You know what I'm saying? So I'm curious kind of as to what you all think just regarding what is best for which situation. Is one elected and one selected the best, or both selected? I mean, I'm curious to kind of.
Well, Doctor, I'm gonna be real with you. I mean, I kind of align with Mike Davis, who was talking earlier, where we kind of just said where we kind of were in agreement that at the end of the day, it's like, does it matter how you select the captain of the Titanic if it's still headed towards the iceberg, right? I mean, at this point, I'm like, right, it's just rearranging furniture on the Titanic. When I feel that we need certainly more systemic structural changes. I don't know what Enrique feels about it, but I'll let him speak.
Well, it's the candidate, right? Partially is the candidate pool.
I think that's the bigger thing, which I think might give you the opportunity to expand that pool. And then the onus is back on the county council, which it seems like they're trying to, grab the power on this thing anyway. Let's face it.
But here's the thing: do we have if that is the main argument, that we have a minimal amount of candidates who want to run for this, and they're not good, yada yada yada. I mean, can't that argument be used for King County Council, the ones who are going to appoint them? Meaning that couldn't we say that we have a minimal amount of qualified candidates, or at least a minimal amount of candidates who we feel are right for this job, and yet they're the ones who are going to be in charge of appointing this person. So all I'm saying is that the argument can extend to any elected office. So why is it just this office that we're concentrating that argument around?
That's a good question, but I think it comes down to then the responsibility and the accountability on the part of the council. And I think they're also, it looks pretty clear they're trying to maybe get a hold of the changes that they might want to have, or the power structure of guiding the police department down the way here. But I can't answer that completely.
Yeah, I mean, my main question was: is it it's whether it's appointed or it's elected? And I, I hate to be
And I get
flippant.
what you're saying.
Yeah, whether it's appointed or elected, is it less of a likelihood that I'm going to get my ass whooped if I'm, in a bad situation with a law enforcement officer, or is it more likely? I mean, that's brass tacks, what people really want to know, and it seemed like there was no answer to that. I mean, and that's what I wanted to know, brass tacks.
Well, I think it's interesting because either way, it's a political. So if we're talking about Seattle police chief, and I know you asked me this, I think that's you asked me this when we spoke maybe a few weeks ago about, does it matter who's the captain of the Titanic? If it is this traditionally racist this institution that has, negative outcomes for Black and brown people kind of built into its foundation. Does it matter if it's a selected position? So it's political either way. So if it's selected, as it is now, it's definitely political. But if somebody were to run for Seattle police chief, I don't know if that would make it more political or not. But I think that either way, you can't escape from it. So I think, like we were saying, it is about kind of increasing the pool of prospective candidates. And so if you're talking about people of color, if you're talking about people who maybe think outside of the normal kind of law enforcement culture thinking box, if those pools of candidates are expanded, then that's one thing. But the whole thing, so there's a lot of, you're gonna get tired of hearing me say this, but there's a lot of overlap between teachers and police officers. And I work with both groups. And so the issue with teachers, at least as it relates to Seattle Public Schools, is increasing the talent pool, or increasing the pool that we have to select from, so that the demographic of teachers is not just completely dominated by one particular group, but you have a diverse pool to select from. And I feel like that conversation kind of extends to this conversation about developing the larger pool of candidates. But I mean, the larger question is, even if we have Black people or people of color within these departments, does that necessarily change the culture of the place? To your question, Marcus, about does it matter who's captaining the Titanic? Does it change the culture of the place? And it may or may not. I mean, let's think about the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore.
Right.
In that case, 3 of the 6 officers charged were Black. The police chief at the time was Black, and the mayor was Black. And so I don't think we can automatically say that if you have a diverse kind of skin color situation, that necessarily adds diversity or addresses the larger issue, which is the culture.
It's kind of interesting as we're talking about this. I just noticed that in Pierce County, Ed Troyer, who was the longtime media spokesperson there, he ran for sheriff, and he's winning. In fact, I think it was King 5 that projected him as the winner this evening. So you have someone within the department, and I suppose the pros are you have someone within the department, but then again, are you getting someone there? You could have that debate again about what's the quality of what you're getting. And
well, that's what I'm saying.
Ed Troyer.
Right, well, that's what I'm saying. If both, I guess what I'm saying is that if ultimately both structures, however you structure it, whether it's elected or it's appointed, produce the same result, then what does it actually matter, right? I mean, I was having a conversation with a friend about this the other day, because United States senators used to be appointed as opposed to elected, right? And he brought up a point the other day. He was, he obviously was not too, he was obviously not too happy about some of the Supreme Court appointments and how that was done. And he said, would it have been done in any different way, even if these folks were appointed as opposed to elected? So what in the world is the use?
So that is the question. I mean, so when if I'm doing work up at the CJTC, which is the Washington State Police Academy, you know what I'm saying, I make sure I go out of my way to say, I'm not being accusatory at all. Who am I to talk? I've been participating for the last 20 some odd years in an institution that has had disproportionately negative outcomes to people that look like me and my children. So I can't throw stones, but the kind of the larger point is in developing these candidates, you know, how the question I would ask is, does it matter? Maybe if you're saying does it matter who captains the Titanic? And I might say maybe it does. Maybe we just don't have the right captain. You know what I'm saying? Perhaps there is a transformative captain that can be out there and sees the iceberg. And even though everybody knows the iceberg is coming, you know, sees the iceberg and is like, we have a choice. We can choose to do things differently, or we can choose to say that this is the greatest ship ever built and nothing can ever sink it.
Dr. Alva, you know we're gonna continue this conversation when we meet up for drinks, but meet up at Theo's place at Island Soul for a meal. But I know we do have to move on, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today, and I know we will be connecting soon, whether with the Emerald professionally or personally.
All right, see you, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. All right. Well, let's turn now to Will Clemmer. Hello, Will.
Hi, Enrique.
How are
nice
you doing?
to meet you. Marcus, great to see you again.
We've been seeing a lot of you this week, Will. You for those of you who don't know, you are the Washington State coordinator for the Braver Angels Association. Braver Angels Alliance, I should say. I know I had an A in there somewhere. But I wanted to ask you, Will, could you explain a little bit about what Braver Angels does and talk a little bit about the local chapter as well?
Yeah, sure. So Braver Angels is a grassroots citizens organization, and its purpose is to fight the political polarization that we're all feeling. You know, it's to get past the demonization and the anger and the separation and the fact that basically the sides of politics don't talk to each other at all. They talk past each other. We talk about each other. We do all that stuff. What we do is we facilitate conversations, constructive conversations between people on opposite sides. And we teach people skills for productive communication. So how to have those difficult conversations with people that don't agree with you, and to still hold your perspective, and to be able to speak for yourself, and to be able to actually, withstand the difference which could become, people are angry about politics. People are triggered by politics and all of that. This is a way to get to a place that we can actually have our ideas heard by the other side and learn about the other side.
Yeah,
how do we do that in an atmosphere where it seems that people really can't talk politics anymore? We are so divided that it seems to be like in my family. I come from a very large Mexican American family. We have those that are in favor of Donald Trump and those who aren't. And we sort of just said no politics. We're family. Let's not even go there. But people, that's how they feel, and they can't even bring it up without having a big brouhaha.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have two answers to that. I mean, the first is that a lot of times we're talking about facilitated conversations. So the Braver Angels thing is, for all intents and purposes, it's marriage and family counseling applied to politics. So we have trained moderators that are neutral arbiters, and we create environments where people can get together and share their ideas with agreements that I'm going to listen to what you have to say. I'm going to understand your policies, your values, why they're important to you. Then you're going to listen to me. I'm going to look at the stereotypes that maybe your side has of my side, and then we're going to look at the stereotypes that vice versa. We do a lot of facilitated conversations because it lets people realize that we actually have points of commonality between these what appear to be very, very different positions. But people are so geared up to defending those positions that you're just, you're always protecting and never really, communicating. The second thing is that we teach active listening skills. We teach facilitation skills. We teach skills where if you're in those difficult situations, you learn that you're speaking for yourself. You're making I statements. This is how I feel. This is how it seems to me. You're asking questions and learning how to process the answers that come back to you and how to turn it into a meaningful conversation instead of just, people. In fact, we even have, you mentioned the thing about family. We have workshops that are about politics and family and identifying what's the style of this family member that's communicating with you. Are they kind of like a political sniper where they just kind of show up and say a comment that is there to piss everybody off and then they're off? Or are they kind of a gladiator? They just want to keep tangling, or, are the people that just sort of, want to avoid everything? There's answers to all of those things. And Braver Angels is taking these concepts in, as I said, marriage and family counseling. It's testing them out with groups all across the country, and we're developing a curriculum, and it's all free. We're a totally, volunteer-driven, donation-driven nonprofit. But we have tons and tons of volunteers. I'm a volunteer, everybody, and just our state is a volunteer.
Well, I just want to quickly fit in a story because I know that we'll get to go to a break. But I just want to say, like, I'm doing a story on Braver Angels, and obviously you and I have been communicating back and forth. And I'll tell you this: it actually made me call a conservative friend of mine who I had not spoken with until I hadn't spoken with since the 2016 election. He's like just polar opposite, conservative Christian. Matter of fact, he is suing Governor Gavin Newsom so that they can reopen their mega church. And, we had a conversation, we talked. I remember the guy who helped me out through, thick and thin, who helped me out with, I didn't have a place to stay. He was there, and I saw him as a human being. And I remember once we got done, I told him that I loved him, and he said, we haven't told each other that in a long time. And I thought how indicative that was of America in this point right now. So anyway, I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, very quickly, how do you find out about where do you go to look at?
The website is braverangels.org, just like it says. We have a local chapter called the Braver Angels Seattle Everett Alliance. And you can write baseattleeverett@gmail.com. Just all spelled out. If you sign up for Braver Angels, if you want to become a member, membership costs $12 a year. Although you can always donate more because, just like a lot of the folks represented here, we are a volunteer.
Yes. And you can also read about Braver Angels in the Seattle Times on Thursdays. It's written by a pretty good.
I think we're going to need a bunch of Braver Angels. That's for sure. Thank you so much, Will. We appreciate you joining us this evening, and let's all find some space to feel better. All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Can I put a plug for a couple events coming up? Just a couple.
Sure, quickly.
So the coming Friday, the Seattle Everett Alliance is having what they call a With Malice Toward None TGIF. It's just a light, informal space for people to come together as Americans, share the emotions they're feeling being supported after the election. Again, writing that baseattleeverett@gmail.com will get you in touch with them. And then on the following Friday, they're hosting a screening of this new documentary, The Reunited States, which is about how we move past all of this, how we heal, how we grow together. The filmmakers are there at the meeting. It's going to be an online meeting. And this is Braver Angels chapter in working with the Snohomish League of Women Voters. So again, write local baseattleeverett@gmail.com and they can hook you up.
Thank you, Will. All right, we'll be right back.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's your man, the Big O. Want to take a moment here, first of all, to say thank you for your support of Converge Media. We definitely wouldn't be here without you. Secondly, I want to thank everybody who is a supporter of Converge Media on Patreon. We definitely appreciate your support. And for those of you might not know, I'll let you know, we operate 100% off of donations. Some donations big, most donations small, but we love all donations all the same. If you haven't done so yet, I want to encourage you to go on our website to whereweconverge.com/donate and subscribe. You click on the Patreon link and you can subscribe for as little as $5 a month. There's higher tiers beyond that as well. And just know that your subscription literally keeps us on the air. Once again, I want to thank you for all your support. All right. You see me here. We're getting towards the bottom of the show. Oh, there he is. Look at Mike. You know, I didn't want to bring the camera back to an empty chair. Flash Gordon over there, man. So it's a lot of stuff that's bubbling, it's culminating here, and so I think we're probably going to wrap up just a few minutes early. I think they said that Vice President Biden is going to be speaking, and also downtown Seattle is very active with the protests and everything else, and so you know we're mobilizing resources down there.
Right.
But before we get out of here, and of course Enrique is the dean of the class, so we'll leave the last word to him. But going around the horn here, man, what are you guys some of these takeaways here? It's either nationally or locally, or nationally looks tight. But we'll start with you, Mike Davis, and we'll go around the horn up to Enrique.
Man, you're gonna wake up tomorrow, man. You're gonna go back to your life, no matter what happens. So at the end of the day, we're gonna ride this out. We got a lot of big victories locally. So if you're Seattle, King County, it's looking like we're trending towards police reform. That's a win in itself. And to be honest, man, I still think it's up in the air. You know, a lot of people had to do mail-in votes for the first time in a lot of those states, especially Pennsylvania. They've only counted half. So just hanging tight for the next few days. I'm sure that there's a lot of people like me, first-time voters. So we're going to see what happens. But I'm still feeling a little optimistic right now, to be honest.
All right, Julia?
Hi, guys. Thank you, Mike, for those encouraging words and sentiments. I can't say that I'm happily optimistic, but I am willing to go to bed and wake up in the morning and, you know, celebrate the small victories and wins. So shout out to my council member, Trayon White, for his big victory. You know, one thing I can say is I was a big advocate on voting locally. So we do see a lot of local wins. So I don't want anyone to feel like because their presidential ballot may not have went in their favor that, you know, that they don't want to go out and vote again. So people like Mike Davis, who went out as a first-time voter to vote locally, you know, you reap what you sow. So it's better to get out there and do something than do nothing at all.
All right, Marcus?
Yeah, I guess I would be like that French journalist who I mentioned earlier and say, you know, in terms of the presidential election, it is what it's going to be. But in terms of this country, people talk about, you know, making America great again. I'm with what Langston Hughes says. He says, make America and remake it and remake it and remake it again. We're a country that we have always faced challenges and adversity, always, and we always will. But we've always been able to rise to the occasion. And tomorrow, whatever happens, as Barack Obama said in 2016, the sun will be up. And you have to meet it. And you have to meet it, you know, with a fierce determination and fierce commitment to a better world at the end of the day. You look at what happened in places like Chile, right? Where, you know, they had been under dictatorial regime and reign for something like 40 years. And then just this last week, they decided to have a new constitution. They came together as a nation to do so. And so that's within our compass as well. And so I have great hope, to be real with you, in this nation, whatever happens, that we will rise to whatever challenge comes our way.
Well, I agree with just what I've heard here about keeping hope and keeping that hope alive. Let me just say that it's not over till it's over. And I think it may go on for a few days before we really understand where things are going to be at. I had hoped that it would be a far quicker decision and that we would know and that things would be more in the form of changing the person at the top, which still might happen. I don't think that that's out of the realm of possibility at this point. I think that there are some things to be positive about, particularly here in Washington State. And that, if you look at the state Supreme Court, they're the first African-American woman to be elected. Helen Whitener is being elected. Also, first Native American woman is being elected, and she's winning tonight. Those are two very positive things. I also noted that in the state legislature, an African-American woman who's running against a longtime Republican in the Pierce County area is in the lead, and that, I think, if that holds true, is a positive to look for as well. So you got to look for those bright spots, and hopefully those will continue, and we'll keep our fingers crossed. I'll hold on to my rosary as I have all night. And I do agree that we can't, no matter how things turn out, we can't just fall apart here. I'm really inspired by the fact that so many people were turned out to vote, that so many people in states across the country that were willing to stand in line. And I saw a lot of people of color there that said, hey, I'm going to vote and nobody's going to take my vote away from me. That was an extreme positive, and let's hope that in many ways that pays off for our democracy. And if we have to pray a little bit for it, let's do that.
All right, there it is. I mean, Big Mama and them always say, "Boy, we've been through worse." And another thing Big Mama always say is, "Can't wait to see what good comes of this." So, on the words of Big Mama, Mike Davis, Julia Jessie, Marcus Harrison Green, Enrique Cerna, thank you so much for joining us this evening. And now, it's tough to get the big dogs like Marcus and Enrique on the platform, but I know Julia and Mike, we're probably going to be talking tomorrow morning on the Morning Update show. So we'll check in there and see what's up. But everybody, I want to tell you, thank you so much. Thank all of our viewers for tuning in. God bless you and good night.
We're right here at East Precinct. It doesn't get any closer than this right now.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective. Praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. As a small independent media company, we rely on the financial support of individuals and business members to stay on the front lines of the news that's important to you.